Chapter 1628. Gregory transformed into a half-orc and let Gu Mingming lie on his back. He moved his shoulder blades slightly as a warm-up before spreading his wings and soaring into the sky with Gu Mingming on his back. He had not flown for 1,000 years, but his bird-like nature made him never forget how to soar. Gu Mingming cheered excitedly on Gregory's back. This was not the first time she was being carried by Gregory. She even had a pair of wings for a short period of time and had flown a few times herself. But this time, it was the most blissful experience she had ever had. A gust of wind blew past her face, making Gu Mingming's eyes dry up. Yes, it was because her eyes were dry that she was tearing up. It was not because she was sentimental. It was not. The grassland that stretched as far as the eye could see was not as majestic as Moda Mountain, but it had a different kind of charm. Snake had transformed into his original form and was already fighting with Elvis. The battle between the two beast kings looked dangerous, but neither of them wanted to kill the other. After all, they could not bear to see the little person flying in the sky shed tears. Leah swayed his large tail as he sat on the back of the two-seater chair. He stepped on the armrest lazily and at ease. He would give Snake pointers at one moment and give Elvis a few reminders at the next. He was the classic type of spectator who did not mind the matter getting bigger and was afraid that their fight was not exciting enough. The girl who was originally crying miserably stood at a distance and looked at the three legendary beast kings. Initially, her emotions of wanting to cry were forcefully dispersed by them. She was a little dazed and suddenly felt that she could not differentiate between reality and fantasy. She really, just because he finished reading a novel, he transmigrated to this world? Initially, she felt her heart ache because Gu Mingming did not value Elvis highly because of Lee's appearance. When Nina's incident happened, she scolded herself for being blind back then and not realizing that Leah was a scumbag. But while scolding him, she also left a message for the author because her heart ached for that white fox's pitiful appearance. Because of Snake's death, she cried a lot, and when she denounced the author, she felt as though she was grinding her teeth. When Gregory broke his wings and was blinded, her heart was tugged at again. At that time, she really wanted to crawl out from the screen and strangle the author to death. But when she saw the ending, the author asked her for help, saying that Snake was really important to her and that she had to save him and Gregory. She agreed in a moment of impulse. She did not even think about it herself. At that time she only muttered, "If I could really transmigrate to the beast world, I would definitely save Snake and Gregory." Then he actually transmigrated? This was not in line with the core values of socialism, and it happened to him just like that. Looking at the snake and wolf fighting, the white fox who was watching the commotion and stirring up trouble, and Gregory who was flying in the sky, the girl wiped away the tears on her face, raised her head and shouted, "Susu, I'm going back first. My man is still waiting for me." The girl on Gregory's back peeked out her little head and waved at her through Gregory's shoulder. "That novel ended 7 years ago and you're still calling me Susu?" The girl smiled brightly and said, "Do you think that everything will be fine after 7 years? You abducted me to the beast world, don't you need to take responsibility? Let me tell you, I'm going to depend on you for the rest of my life. You will always be my Susu." Gu Mingming chuckled and nodded. "All right, I will always be your Susu." Aside from the topic, after accompanying Susu for over 200 days, we finally welcome the ending of this novel. I wonder if my darlings are satisfied with this ending? The process was a little complicated, but the outcome was ultimately good. If any of my darlings is willing to transmigrate to the beast world and continue writing chapters, you can leave a long comment on the comments section or send a private message to Susu through the fan group. Outstanding works with a length of 1,000 words and above would be published by Susu in the form of a free novel in the external chapters, with the reader's name indicated. But to avoid copyright infringement, my darlings must not copy other people's novels. Once discovered, it will be deleted immediately. Lastly, please advertise Susu's new novel, Warm Thoughts on a Pillow. Don't stop taking the CEO's medication. Chapter 1629. Traversing the Doors of Time and Space. This option was just a smokescreen from the start. Standing at the entrance of S University, Gu Mingming was still in a daze. Her little reader had first replaced her as the messenger of the beast deity, then with Oraton's disappearance she had replaced her as the new beast deity. Then Gu Mingming was suddenly at a loss. Not the messenger of the beast deity, not the beast deity, then, who should Gu Mingming be? What should she do? Return to Saint Nazir? But to her, 3 years and 1,000 days were 1,000 earth-shattering years in the beast world. How could she, the messenger of the beast deity who had been dead for 1,000 years, return? Of course, no one could stop her if she wanted to return. After all, A family of 5 and 3 beast kings was enough to turn the beast world upside down. But how could she return to face everything that had changed? Barit, who said he wanted to guard a place for her to return to, had long turned into ashes, unable to break through the third-level boundary. He said his life was in the hands of one person, and other than that person he would not belong to anyone else. Although the 16 valued females were well taken care of, there was a limit to their beast lives. Without the powers of a beast king they could not be immortal like Gu Mengmeng. Since ancient times beauties were like heroes, not allowed to see their hair turn white. The 16 golden hairpins who had once surrounded her, the 16 beauties who made her feel proud wherever she went, had gradually faded away with the passage of time. How could she not feel sorry for them? She could not return, not because someone was stopping her, but because Gu Mengmeng herself could not overcome the barrier in her heart. Therefore, she muddle-headedly stayed in her beast deity illusion for a long period of time. The question she repeatedly pondered was, who am I? Where am I? What should I do? Snake curled his tail and wrapped Gu Mengmeng into his arms, saying, if you are bored, go back to the modern world. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback, tilting her head to look at Snake. Her eyes were full of excitement, but also full of doubt, as if she did not understand Snake's meaning and was waiting for him to explain. Snake's lips curled up, saying, the last time my parents supported you at the press conference, you suddenly cried and I carried you away. Time there is still at the same place. Do you want to go back and finish acting that overbearing senior falls in love with me? Since you know it's all fake, why do you have to lie to yourself? Gu Mengmeng's spirit wilted and the light in her eyes dimmed. But Snake smiled and said, truth can be false and falsehood can also be true. This world has always been like this. Everyone said that Zhuangzhou dreamed of a butterfly, but who could guarantee that it was not a butterfly dreaming of Zhuangzhou? Anyway, he had nothing to do, so he could just treat it as a pastime. Besides, halfway through his sentence, Snake planted a human kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. He said in a deep and calm tone, I promise to give you a complete family, so I must do it. Regardless of whether other things are true or false, we who are by your side are true. That's enough, isn't it? It was obvious that after experiencing the baptism of the modern world, Snake knew how to communicate with females better than Elvis, Leah or anyone else in the beast world. He was no longer the awkward Snake King who had kicked little shit up a tree. Gu Mengmeng's lips curled. Yeah, so what if the illusion was fake? Elvis, Leah, Grace and Snake who were by her side were real. That was enough. What about you? What do you say? Are you willing to act out a show with me? Gu Mengmeng asked. Digression. She did not want to write the digression, but the little babies kept saying that the overbearing senior did not see the ending and kept thinking about it. So Susu picked up her pen again and continued writing. Chapter 1630. Elvis walked forward and scooped Gu Mengmeng out of Snake's arms. I will always listen to Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng nodded. Since Elvis was acting like the first partner, Leah naturally could not bully him as a senior. Hence, he leaned into Gu Mengmeng's arms in his usual flirtatious manner. That place is Snake's home ground. Gu Mengmeng, you have to protect me and not let Snake bully me like he did in the Snake King Valley. My little heart is thumping non-stop. I'm scared and excited at the same time. Gu Mengmeng touched me. This coquettish fox was up to his old tricks again. Just look at his eyes. Without even opening his mouth, Snake could read the hidden meaning in his words. See, Gu Mengmeng's heart is still on our side. But unfortunately, he could no longer bear to kill this coquettish fox who kept provoking him for no reason. After all, they were a family. Moreover, Gu Mengmeng was a treasure that he had exchanged for after dying twice in the most tragic way. He would rather turn his bones into ashes than let her frown again. So, even if this coquettish fox could ascend to the heavens, he could only whip him down with his tail. He could not whip him to death. Elvis and Leah both expressed their stance. Gu Mengmeng's gaze naturally landed on Gregory. Gregory's status in this family was rather special and awkward. He was not Gu Mengmeng's partner but a guardian beast. But her partners were all beast kings. Was it his turn to protect her? But what could he do? Even if it was awkward, even if it was difficult, he still wanted to stay by her side and never leave her side. Smiling, Gregory was like a celestial being who stayed on the mountain for a long time. His eyes were as deep as an ancient spring. He opened his mouth and said calmly, wherever baby Meng is, I will be there. The result of everyone passing was that Snake brought them back to the time when they left the last time. Elvis, Leah and Gregory could not appear in Z country without identification cards. So they could only go to F country with Snake's arrangements. Snake's family was the royal family there. Especially in the recent 10 over years under Snake's control, The family became stronger day by day. It was too easy for such a family to get a few identification cards. Moreover, Elvis and the rest looked more European. If they insisted that they were from Z country, it would be even more out of place. However, among the 3 people who were arranged to go to country F, the first one who could come to country Z was not the 2 beast kings, but the guardian beast, Gregory. His identity was simple. He was the personal bodyguard Snake had arranged for Gu Mingming. Yeah, because the newly appointed CEO of Monsieur Company, Snake's pampered girlfriend, was locked in the toilet during the press conference and drenched with a basin of water, Snake's parents unanimously agreed that Gu Mingming needed a personal bodyguard. Snakel was speechless and kept telling himself, Xiaoming needs a pair of parents, this is prepared for Xiaoming. I can't kill them, I can't kill them, I can't kill them. In the end, Snake could only choose Gregory, who had the lowest presence and had spent the most time with him. After all, to Gu Mingming it was over 1,000 days and nights, but to him he had really been burning in the lava of Moda Mountain for 1,000 years. And in these 1,000 years, it was this birdman who broke his own wings and sacrificed his life to the mountain, so that he could have the chance to return to Gu Mingming's side. Chapter 1631. So, the final outcome was that Snake's parents had unilaterally announced that Gu Mingming was the future daughter-in-law of their family. Then, with a bunch of extremely profound and high-class English that they could not understand even though their English had obviously passed the 4th or 6th level, they returned to the country in a high-profile manner. That speech was summed up by Snake in one sentence. Gu Mingming is our family's daughter-in-law, whoever touches her will be challenging the F country's royal family, causing a diplomatic dispute between the 2 countries. As a result, Gu Mingming became the hottest new rich overnight. But the amazing thing was, no one knew who the F country's prince who had a marriage agreement with Gu Mingming was. Snake was still a gigolo who was kept by Gu Mingming. So, Gu Mingming, who was surrounded by the crowd at the entrance of S University, was dumbfounded. How should she put it? Her relationship with her husband did not seem to be legal in the modern world. But after being husband and wife for thousands of years, they were suddenly framed by the modern world's marriage values. She, as an authentic modern person, suddenly reverted back to the old ways, and felt like she was not acclimatized. She could almost guess what kind of melodramatic drama the students were imagining. It must be that the F country's prince found out that Gu Mingming had kept Snake, the gigolo, in the country and was heartbroken. So, he secretly left Z country and returned to F country to heal his emotional wounds. But before he left, he was worried about Gu Mingming's safety, afraid that she would be deceived by Snake, the gigolo. So, he left his confidant Gregory by Gu Mingming's side as a bodyguard, to help this prince who had the Horcan plains above his head look after his wife. Just look at Gregory's strong aura, his burly figure, his handsome looks, a strong scent of abstinence wafted over, it really made one's heart flutter. Just look, he and Snake were standing on Gu Mingming's left and right. Their gazes were like sparks, and one could smell the burning scent even from a distance away. Do you want to eat at home or at the canteen? Snake asked. Gu Mingming replied, let's eat at home and help Gregory learn the way. Gregory replied, all right. I'll listen to you. Snake gave in unconditionally. Crack crack, his knees shattered. What was going on? Wasn't it supposed to be a battle of swords drawn and bows drawn? A battle between a loyal dog's heart and a senior's lover? Why did it suddenly become harmonious? It was said that the road of love had always been narrow. It was just right for 2 people, but it was destined to be bumpy with one more person. Hiss. But why did it look like the 3 of them were walking quite widely? One on the left and one on the right, protecting the petite girl in the middle. Their coordination was too good. Of course, they did not know that if Gu Mingming's entire family was present, the scene would be even more shocking. Gu Mingming had lessons in the morning, which meant that Snake also had lessons in the morning. Because he had voluntarily applied to the school to repeat a year and transfer to the same grade and specialization as Gu Mingming, strictly speaking he was no longer Gu Mingming's senior. Yes, he was Gu Mingming's legitimate husband. The mark was on his heart. That was a place that was inconvenient for others to see. It was not as conspicuous as the wolf on her collarbone and the fox on her ears, but it made Snake feel deeply that what was the point of dying twice for her? If that kind of situation happened again, he did not mind dying a 3rd time, a 4th time to protect her. Even if each death was more tragic than the one before, and each death was more painful than the one before, he would gladly endure it. As long as she was well, he would do anything. Aside from the topic, previously you kept asking me why Elvis's mark was not on his heart? Why was Lee's mark not on his heart? Now do you know why? Chapter 1632. Gu Mingming's grades were below average and she had to work a few jobs a day. In the past, she would usually fall asleep in class, especially when the old professor rambled on and on. His tone and frequency were more effective than hypnosis. But this time, Gu Mingming was so excited that she could not fall asleep. This class was about labor relations and management. The old professor was analyzing the labor dispute case of a certain cartoon company in 2008 due to job hopping. He then explained the importance of labor contract management. To be honest, Gu Mingming was still not paying attention to what the old professor was saying. Her pair of big eyes were looking around the entire classroom, and every detail made her feel pleasantly surprised. Actually, before transmigrating, she had never observed a classroom in such detail. What was there to see about something she was used to? But after going to the beast world and coming back, Gu Mingming felt a sense of familiarity even from the purple clay cup the old professor was using to drink water. The students' scribbles on the blackboard, the silk banner hanging on the wall, the slogan 5 stresses and 4 beauties on the blackboard, and the old professor's cursive handwriting that was comparable to an old Chinese doctor's prescription. During roll call, there was a female student who used a book to cover her face and changed her voice to call out for the entire dorm. There was a male student who was sleeping soundly on the table. There was a young couple who was sitting diagonally with a wronged expression, and a young couple who was looking at each other with deep love and regret, thinking that they were filming a music video. There was also an ambiguous partner who was sitting next to each other, but pretended not to know each other, but was surrounded by bonus bubbles. University life was so rich. Why did she not realize it in the past? At that time she could only try her best to survive. How would she have the time to realize all these? He pinched Gu Mingming's little hand. Gu Mingming then regained her senses and looked at Snake. That momentary smile dazzled Snake's eyes, and the depression that he had initially felt also dissipated into thin air. "What's wrong?" Gu Mingming asked. Snake wanted to put on a cold face, but he could not do so in front of Gu Mingming. The corners of his lips had already betrayed him. Every time he saw Gu Mingming, he would unknowingly smile and could not pull it back. As if he had accepted his fate, Snake's tone was unbelievably soft. He no longer had any of the awe-inspiring aura of the Snake King who killed decisively in the past. Right now he was completely a man who fell in love with his wife. All the tenderness in the world was concentrated on the little person in front of him. "You haven't looked at me since this morning? Elvis and Leah aren't around, so I have to fight for attention with this lousy school now?" Gu Mingming pinched her nose and said exaggeratedly, "So sour. My teeth are about to fall off. You still dare to laugh at me?" Snake frowned, but his eyes were filled with doting and indulgent smiles. Gu Mingming looked at the old professor who was still explaining the specific details of different labor contracts and gestured a should gesture. She whispered, "We're in class, don't disturb others. Be quiet and be good, mm." Snake gritted his teeth. Obediently? She actually asked him to be obedient. He was the great Lord Snake, the supreme Snake King in the beast world, the most honorable prince in the modern era, the powerful CEO. She actually asked him to be obedient. What was even more hateful was that after she said that, he actually really, obediently, shut his mouth. Aside from the topic, well, the draft for the new article is still in storage. The speed of the new article cannot be as fast as before, 9,000 a day. The editor meant that 2,000 a day would be enough for me to slowly increase it. But 2,000, even if the editor had the cheek to say that, I would be too embarrassed to agree. So let's temporarily set it at 4,000 a day. If Susu's time permits, she can update a little more, babies, you can understand me, right? Chapter 1633. Looking at Snake's conflicted expression, Gu Mingming smiled slyly. He was just too adorable. Yeah, if Snake knew that Gu Mingming used the word, adorable, to describe him, he might really fly into a rage? But what could he do? He was just adorable. That unsmiling and aloof Prince Charming, Lord Snake, who studied in S University for a year and was treated as a mute and did not speak a single word to his classmates, was now staring with his eyes wide open, as if he had suffered a loss but had nowhere to vent his anger. It was a perfect match for the trending emoticon, "I feel bitter in my heart, but I won't say it." This contrast, if it wasn't adorable, what was it? Using the book to cover her face, Gu Mingming pecked Snake's cheek as if she was deceiving herself. Then she returned to her original position, smiling mischievously at Snake. This kiss brightened up Snake's entire expression. How could he be in a bad mood? Then the surrounding people exploded even more. The loyal bodyguard who was here to look after the princess wife? Your future princess kissed a gigolo in public and you're just calmly pretending to be blind. If Gu Mingming and the other two claimed to be number 2, no one would dare to claim to be number 1. Everyone was paying attention to her, but no one dared to go near her. When the news of Gu Mingming being the CEO of Monsieur was released, there were still people who tried to suck up to her. But when the news of F country's future princess was released, the world instantly quietened down. Especially that Miss Mo from the Mo family. She poured a basin of water on them in the toilet, directly soaking the Mo family, a family with 100 years of history. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter, and when the wall is down, everyone kicks it. In an instant, the Mo family turned from a well-off wealthy family into a street rat that everyone wanted to beat up. All their businesses were suppressed by Snake in all aspects, without any regard for costs. Even if the Mo family had a mountain of gold and silver, it was not enough for Snake to scam them like this, so very quickly they faced the crisis of having their cash flow broken. This news was magnified by the media, and all the other businesses that had business dealings with them came to settle their accounts, causing the Mo family, a family that was in a precarious situation, to be battered and exhausted. And the one who spread the news of the Mo family's cash flow breaking was the Miss Mo's marriage partner, the other wealthy family in S City, the Fan family. Marriage had nothing to do with love in the first place. You have your fun and I have mine. It was very normal. That was why the young master of the Fan family, Fan Yuanbin, did what he did, not because he was jealous of his fiancée for finding trouble with another woman for another man. Instead, it was because the old master of the Mo family had come to ask for help. He hoped that the Fan family would lend a helping hand at this critical juncture and complete the marriage between Fan Yuanbin and the young lady of the Mo family, Mo Fun, ahead of time. Then he would lend the Mo family a sum of money in the name of betrothal gifts to help the Mo family tide over the current crisis. After the storm had passed and the Mo family had recovered, they would return the money in the name of dowry. However, the Mo clan had forgotten one thing. The so-called marriage alliance was a cooperative relationship that could only be formed when both parties were of equal strength. Right now, the Mo clan was already in existence that everyone avoided like the plague. Chapter 1634. Once this news came out, it was like adding hail to snow. Some of the old business partners who did not press for the debt because of old friendships had no choice but to come to settle the debt. The Mo family really could not fork out the money. None of old Master Mo's antiques were left. They were all moved away. Even the heirloom ring on his finger was forcefully taken off to pay off the debt. Gu Mingming did not know and Snake did not remember any of this. Because although they had transmigrated back a week ago, this week was a long 1,000 years that they had spent in the beast world. Snake experienced the decomposition of his body and was suppressed in the magma of Motu for 1,000 years. After his rebirth, how could he see anyone else other than Gu Mingming? To him, the Mo family's matter was just an order he had sent to his assistant while waiting for Gu Mingming to bathe in the changing room. Moreover, how could he remember a small episode from 1,000 years ago for so long? But to the others here, all of this happened yesterday. Everyone in S City knew how expensive Miss Mo's basin of water was. Under such circumstances, who would dare to go near Gu Mingming? Of course, it would be glorious to cling to her, but if they did not know their limits, they would end up in a terrible state. It was not easy to cling to this thigh. And look at the two people beside her, they did not give anyone a chance to get close to her. So, after Gu Mingming returned to school, other than the countless gazes that lingered on her, the truly annoying ones did not stick to her. But, she had been the messenger of the beast deity for over 5 years in the beast world. After being stared at by ferocious wild beasts for 5 years, the gazes of the modern world seemed like child's play. Compared to the hundreds of males in Saint Nazaire who used their true forms to stare at her with their green eyes, tearing the carcasses of animals around her, drinking their blood, chewing on the heads of tigers and claws of wolves in front of her, these gazes in the modern world were negligible. Because she had completely forgotten the past and everyone's gazes were treated as ineffective attacks by Gu Mingming, she did not take it to heart. So the Mo family's matter did not cause any ripples in Gu Mingming's heart. Gu Mingming did not have any classes in the afternoon, and Monday was the regular training day for the basketball club. Strictly speaking, Gu Mingming had not seen Bailan for over 10 years. She really missed her. To be able to return here and see Bailan was definitely the thing that Gu Mingming wanted the most. She dragged Snake and Gregory to the basketball club early in the morning and saw Bailan playing with Zhang Jincheng. The two of them were now in a relationship, but they were not as affectionate as other couples. Instead, they were more like good brothers who would fight each other whenever they saw each other. However, it was one thing for the two of them to insult each other to the point that they were worthless. If an outsider dared to say anything bad about the other party, they would roll up their sleeves and attack without a word of nonsense. Bai Lan. Gu Mingming's eyes reddened the moment she saw Bai Lan. That kind of feeling, as if it was a lifetime ago, directly attacked his heart. Ever since Snake came back to life, Gu Mingming's tears, which she had not shed for so many years, gushed out in an instant, unable to be stopped. Chapter 1635. As she said that, Bai Lan glared fiercely at Snake. Snake really felt like he could not defend himself even with 100 mouths. Feeling wronged by Bai Lan's glare, he leaped up angrily, but could not do anything to this woman. Gu Mingming cared about her very, very much. She did not say anything and just called out Bai Lan, before her tears flowed uncontrollably. Snake did not doubt that if he dared to touch a single strand of Bai Lan's hair today, Gu Mingming would drown him with her tears. Gu Mingming cried even more fiercely as she hugged Bai Lan tightly, choking with sobs. "I miss you so much, I'll go." Bai Lan quivered. She grabbed Gu Mingming's shoulders and pulled her away. Glancing at her tearful little face, she hugged her harshly back into her arms. She said in an especially manly manner, all right, I'll satisfy you. Go back to the dormitory to sleep tonight. If you can get off the bed tomorrow, it'll be my loss." Actually, girls would occasionally crack such jokes among themselves, but most of the time it was in private, when there were no boys around. Other than Bai Lan, there was probably no other girl in this world who dared to say something like that in front of everyone. Gu Mingming was tickled by Bai Lan's words. She punched Bai Lan lightly and sniffled. "If I occupy you, what will happen to Zhang Jin Cheng?" Bai Lan laughed heartily and said, "Both of us have become lesbians, then let him go and be gay with Snake. Wife-swapping games, it's quite exciting just thinking about it." Ah. Gu Mingming was someone who had lived for more than 1,000 years, but she still could not withstand Bai Lan's charms. Pinching Bai Lan, Gu Mingming was just about to scold her for not being serious when her waist tightened. Gu Mingming was suddenly pulled from behind and fell into a chest. Turning back, she met Gregory's cold and calm eyes. He was looking at Bai Lan with an extremely unfriendly gaze. His brows were slightly furrowed, as if he was sizing up whether Bai Lan was male or female. Gu Mingming was stunned. She then remembered that Gregory came from the beast world. This was his first time interacting with a modern person. He would definitely not be able to adapt to Bai Lan's heavy-taste jokes. She wanted to explain but could not find the right words, so she could only turn to Snake for help. But the moment she saw Snake's face, fine because of Bai Lan's wife-swapping joke, this old man's face was about to freeze, so he obviously wouldn't help. Gu Mingming's current position was a little awkward, because the way Gregory carried her was the same way Elvis carried her in the beast world, supporting his buttocks with one arm as if he was carrying a child. This was very normal in the beast world, but in the modern world, basically no boyfriend had ever hugged his girlfriend like this. Especially since in everyone's eyes Snake was Gu Mingming's boyfriend, while Gregory was just a bodyguard. Bai Lan's expression was also unfriendly. She had already noticed Gregory just now, but Gu Mingming cried the moment she saw him, so she did not have the time to ask. Now, even her real boyfriend didn't dare to snatch him from her hands, but a hothead who popped out of nowhere dared to snatch him from her hands. Chapter 1636. Gu Mingming patted Gregory's shoulder and said, "Put me down first." Gregory's brows were still furrowed and he was obviously on guard against Bai Lan. "Gregory?" Gu Mingming frowned and her gaze was filled with urgency. Her eyes were still red from crying and Gregory naturally could not bear to make her angry again, so he placed her on the ground but kept his arms around her shoulders and did not allow her to walk over to Bai Lan. Gu Mingming had no choice but to say to Gregory, "This is Bai Lan, a very important friend to me, just as important as Sandy. Understand?" Gu Mingming purposely emphasized on the word, very important, and even used Sandy as an example. Although Gregory was still frowning, he had retracted his cold aura and just nodded as a form of greeting. Gu Mingming knew that Gregory would at least not lay a hand on Bai Lan and heaved a sigh of relief. She turned to look at Bai Lan and said, "He is Gregory, he is my—" Gu Mingming suddenly bit her own tongue. How should she introduce him? "This is my guardian beast, the kind that can die for me but cannot enter my bed." Gu Mingming already felt awkward introducing guardian beasts in the beast world, and now that she was in the present world, she could not bring herself to say it. "Pursuer." Snake gave Gu Mingming a simple reminder and gave her a suitable phrase. Gu Mingming looked at Snake gratefully as if she had just been pardoned and said, yes, pursuer. *CK. Bai Lan's eyes widened and she wrapped her arms around Gu Mingming's to pull her to her side. If she were to grab a handful of melon seeds and munch on them, she would be a modern gossipy woman. Bailan nudged Gu Mingming with her shoulder and said, how did you do it? You made these two love rivals coexist peacefully and even work together to fight against outsiders? But, girl, your taste is not good. How can you find one who looks like a mute and another who still looks like a mute? Gu Mingming could not explain to Bailan how loyal the males in the beast world were to their own females. And she did not want to change their stubbornness. Call her selfish, call her anything, but she frankly admitted that she liked and enjoyed the loyalty and unique gentleness they gave her. So Gu Mingming just smiled and said, I like the ice abstinence type. Tieske, do you have masochistic tendencies? Isn't it good to coax you every day? You like to hug ice cubes. Aren't you afraid that you'll freeze? I won't. Gu Mingming chuckled because she knew better than anyone else how warm her man was to her. He would never freeze her. Bailan smiled slyly, a different kind of ambiguity appearing in the corner of Gu Mingming's eyes. She nudged Bailan with her shoulder. You are so annoying. Are you shy? As Bailan spoke, she held Gu Mingming and walked to the side. When she passed by Zhang Jinqing, she said with a look of disdain, aren't you the leader? Everyone is here. Don't we need to organize a practice? So you're all here to let out some fresh air in the basketball club, right? Zhang Jinqing did not lose his temper even after being teased by Bailan. He just chuckled and said, yes, let's hurry up and practice. The Tech University basketball team sent us a challenge letter and indicated that they want to meet Snake. When the time comes, the surrounding universities' basketball clubs will all send representatives to watch the match. Snake. Whether our basketball club can become an instant hit depends on you. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1637. Having not touched a basketball for 1,000 years, Snake felt an itch to play, so he entered the changing room to change. Gregory was not a member of the basketball club, but he was tall, well-built and handsome. Zhang Jinqing had thought of pulling him into the basketball club, but Gregory was obviously an enemy of Bailan. He guarded Gu Mingming closely and did not spare a single glance at anyone else. This caused Zhang Jinqing to attempt to strike up a conversation several times, only to be met with a nose full of ice. In the end, Zhang Jinqing gave up. And considering that Snake and Gregory were love rivals for the sake of team harmony, Zhang Jinqing could only give up the idea of recruiting Gregory. And all these psychological activities, other than Zhang Jinqing, no one else noticed. He was the legendary playboy with a lot of inner drama, but no one had an audience. Snake was still very handsome when he played basketball. Gu Mingming and Bailan did not chat for long before their eyes were attracted to Snake. Bailan laughed at the side. Good for nothing. Then she gave Gregory a warning look, which probably meant, did you see that? The two of them have a good relationship. You'd better know when to back off. Don't ruin their relationship. Gregory could not be bothered with Bailan's warning. He just quietly admired Gu Mingming, who was looking at Snake with an infatuated look. Did he want to be the one who attracted her gaze? Grace was seriously thinking about this problem. If sweating profusely on the basketball court could make her look at him with such focus and admiration, would he be willing? The answer was yes, he was willing. But when she looked at him like that, he could not return the same focus and would miss out on her expression. Then would he still be willing? He was not willing. He had suppressed Modu for 1,000 years, which meant he had missed out on seeing her for 1,000 years. And now, he was not willing to miss out on seeing her again. So what if her gaze was not focused on him? As long as she was in his line of sight, he would feel blissful. After the practice ended, Snake brought Gu Mingming and Gregory back to the villa. Snake's sports car only had 2 seats, so a commercial car was temporarily transferred from the 4th Fleet. His sports car was parked directly in the school. Anyway, no one dared to interfere. It was Gregory's first time in a car. He was nervous and uneasy. To comfort him, Gu Mingming sat with him in the back seat. Snake was unhappy, but he only said, so weak. He did not say anything else. Gregory did not refute. If he showed weakness, baby Ming would accompany him and care about him. He did not mind showing weakness all the time. After all, out of the 4 males in the family, he was the only level 3 orc. Gu Mingming held onto Gregory's hand and gently patted the back of it. It's all right, don't be afraid. Snake's driving skills are top-notch. He's an experienced driver. With you here, I'm not afraid, Grace replied with a gentle smile. It would be an exaggeration to say that he was afraid. It was just that riding in a car was too novel and Gregory was a little nervous. Fortunately, Snake drove home smoothly and did not deliberately speed to scare Gregory. The moment she alighted, Gu Mingming's phone rang. The caller ID indicated that it was Bailan. Gu Mingming didn't think much and directly picked it up. Hello, Bailon. You miss me so soon? Gu Mingming's joke was met with a creepy sneer on the other end of the phone. That sneer was modified by a voice changer. Chapter 1638. If you want to save your good friend, come to the unfinished building in the northern suburbs alone. If you dare to bring one more person, I will push them down to their deaths in front of you. With that, before Gu Mingming could reply, the call was cut off. When Gu Mingming called back, it was a reminder that the phone was switched off. Gu Mingming panicked. She looked at Snake and Gregory, not knowing what to do. This is kidnapping, we can report it to the police. Snake replied calmly. Gu Mingming shook her head and said with a sobbing tone, Didn't you hear what she said just now? If one more person goes, she will push Bailon down. Snake held Gu Mingming's shoulders with both hands and said, Don't panic, Gregory and I will go with you. We will definitely help you save Bailon. But she said, Are the two of us humans? Snake smiled devilishly and asked Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming choked. She looked at Snake and then at Gregory and shook her head. A snake, a bird, not human, they were not human. So we can go. Snake hugged Gu Mingming and said, Don't worry, don't be afraid. We said we won't let you cry again, so we won't let you cry again. Gu Mingming was comforted by Snake's hug. She nodded and felt more at ease. Snake placed her back in the car and went straight to the unfinished building in the northern city. The unfinished building in the north city was originally meant to be a villa, but who knew that halfway through the construction, the boss lost all his money in gambling and ran away. The building was left unfinished. Usually, many drug addicts would gather here to have a good time, and those delinquents who thought they were cool and awesome would often gather here to fight or have sex. Anyway, this was the most filthy place in S City. Children from decent families would not come here. And it was naturally Gu Mingming's first time stepping into such a place. It was just evening and it was not the time for those people to move around. The walls of this dilapidated villa were filled with non-mainstream graffiti such as skulls. Burnt petrol barrels, cigarette butts and condoms were the main rubbish here. Snake parked the car outside the unfinished building. He did not let Gu Mingming enter directly but gave Gregory a look. Gregory understood and shrugged his shoulders, transforming into a bird and flying into the night sky against the sunset glow. At a sufficient height, nothing in the unfinished building could escape Gregory's eyes. He circled around once and locked onto a location. He flew back to Mingming's side and said, In that building I saw the shoes that Zhang Jinqing wore today. There's smoke coming from the 4th floor, but it doesn't seem like a bonfire because it's very thin and faint. Alright, then I'm going in. Snake smiled and said, Taming, who are you going to call to help you later? Gu Mingming pushed Snake and said, Bailon is still inside, I'm not in the mood to joke around. Snake hooked Gu Mingming's chin and said, I'm not joking either. I admit that I lost to Elvis, but if you dare to be the last to call me, I will eat them. Gu Mingming was really speechless. She could only nod and say, Alright, I got it. I'm going in first. Snake leaned against the car door and waved his hand saying, Go on, Pikachu. Chapter 1639. According to the coordinates given by Gregory, Gu Mingming accurately found where Bailon and the rest were. Looking up, she saw a vulture hovering above her head at a height of 6,000 meters. She did not even need to think to know who it was. Gregory's speed was extremely fast, and he would only need about 4 seconds to dive down. That meant that if she was pushed down from the 4th floor, Gregory would be able to catch her before she hit the ground from a height of 6,000 meters. So, what was there to be afraid of? Gu Mingming hummed a tune as she walked step by step to the bottom of the villa. The shape of the walls had already been completed, but it was still rough. There were no windows or doors and there were no handrails for the stairs. It looked tattered, and it was hard to imagine that this was originally a high-end residential area targeted at the wealthiest people. There were no obstructions along the way to the 4th floor, but having lived in the beast world for so many years, Gu Mingming still had some of the sharp senses of an orc. Of course, it was not as sharp as Elvis, Leah and Snake, but she still had the basic ability to sense things. There seemed to be 5 or 6 people lying in ambush around the villa. From the moment she entered the villa, they quietly followed behind her. When she went up to the 2nd floor, one of the 5 or 6 people stayed behind to guard the door, probably to keep a lookout, while the rest followed her upstairs. Obviously, they were afraid that she would run away, and were prepared to surround her. TSK, they really had no sense of danger, unable to differentiate who was the hunter and who was the prey. Gu Mingming pretended that she did not notice them, and continued humming a tune as she walked up the stairs. The people lying in ambush also felt that Gu Mingming's state was not right at first, but after a closer look she really came alone. The man who sent her here was standing by the roadside, and did not enter the estate with her at all. So they analyzed Gu Mingming's humming posture as she walked up the stairs to boost her courage, pretending to be calm and acting mysterious. When she reached the 4th floor she saw Bailan and Zhang Jinqing tied to a folding chair back to back. Their arms were tied together, and it was impossible for them to help each other untie the ropes. Both of their legs were tied to the legs of the chair, and the edges of the ropes were stained with blood, showing how tightly they were tied. 2 people who couldn't move were suspended in the air by iron chains. The chains swayed slightly and made a sharp and ear-piercing sound. Gu Mingming frowned and her heart twitched. When she first went to the beast world she felt that the sharp claws and fangs of the orcs were too scary, but when she returned to the modern world she understood. When humans are ruthless they are much scarier than ferocious beasts. Gu Mingming. Bailan's face was covered in blood and she could not open her eyes. She could vaguely make out a figure and called out in a weak voice. Gu Mingming frowned and chuckled, replying, "Yeah, Bailan, I'm here to save you, don't be afraid." That sentence was like pouring a bowl of water into a boiling pot of oil. Bailan immediately struggled and shouted with all her might, "Run! You idiot! What are you doing here? Don't you know how to call the police? She asked you to come so you came. Run! Run back immediately." Chapter 1640. A low growl was heard. It was a man's voice. Zhang Jinqing. Bailan panicked and shouted anxiously, "I'm fine, Bailan, don't worry. I'm fine." Zhang Jinqing's voice was extremely weak. When they kidnapped Bailan, he had fought with them with all his might. Although he was a member of the basketball team and had a better physique than them, a fierce tiger could not fight against a pack of wolves. How could 2 fists fight against 4 hands? Moreover, there were more than 10 of them and they were all armed. By the time he defeated 3 or 4 of them, he was already riddled with injuries. In the end, all he could do was protect Bailan with all his might and try his best not to let her get hurt. Just now, he had used up the last of his energy to turn their bodies to the back of Bailan, while his calf was hit hard by that woman. The bones in his calf were probably broken. Basketball he might not be able to play in the future. But the moment the pain spread throughout his entire body, the first thought that came to his mind was, luckily she was not the one in pain. You're really a Casanova. The woman laughed sarcastically. Zhang Jinqing spat out the blood in his mouth and said, "Maybe I stayed with Snake for too long and didn't learn basketball skills. I learned some infatuation. I'm not a Casanova, but as long as I, Zhang Jinqing, am still breathing, I will not let you hurt a single hair on Bailan." The woman paused when she heard Snake's name. Then she gritted her teeth and turned to look at Gu Mingming. Her gaze was colder than a poisonous scorpion's. "The person in Snake's heart, since he dotes on you so much, why did he let you come here alone? I think you're just SOSO. As the woman spoke, she walked towards Gu Mingming. She dragged the wooden stick on the ground and made a slight scraping sound. Gu Mingming did not waste her 5 years in the beast world. Her background might not be as good as the orcs, but against the modern people, even a boxing champion might not have much chance of winning against her. After all, her sparring partners in the beast world were all ferocious beasts who were kings of the mountains. However, before they started fighting, Gu Mingming felt that there was a need to clarify some questions, so she retracted her gaze from Bailan and looked at the woman approaching her. She asked calmly, "But, who are you?" The woman paused and stared at Gu Mingming in disbelief. She realized that Gu Mingming had a blank and calm look on her face and it was obvious that she really did not know her. Who am I? You ruined my family and now you're asking me who I am? What could be more cruel than someone who was so jealous that they almost became a demon, but the other party didn't even remember who you were? Me. Gu Mingming pointed at her own nose, feeling wronged. She had just transmigrated back this morning and had been attending classes in the morning. In the afternoon she went to the club with Snakel. She had just returned home when she was called here before even entering the house. She did not mind destroying the family of this woman who had hurt Bailan, but she needed time to work on the case. Gu Ming. Go and die, you should go and die. As the woman said that, she suddenly pounced towards Gu Mingming and smashed the wooden stick in her hand down. Gu Mingming tilted her body and easily dodged the woman's attack. Having seen so many fights between Elvis and Snakel, this woman's movements were as slow as a snail's. Gu Mingming kicked the woman's ankle with one foot and grabbed her wrist with the other. She twisted it hard and the wooden stick in the woman's hand fell to the ground. Aside from the topic, clap for student Xiao Zhan. Bravery does not mean that you are invincible. It means that even though you are clearly afraid, you still stood in front of me to protect me. Chapter 1641. Gu Mingming caught the wooden stick and slung it over her shoulder. As she smiled sideways, the woman fell to the ground like a dog eating **T. Gu Mingming even gave her a person with a wicked sense of humor. Bam! Ah! The woman screamed. She covered her wound with one hand and curled up on the ground, not daring to move. Yes, her wrist holding the wooden stick was crushed by Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming really did not do it on purpose. She just wanted to snatch the wooden stick from her hand, but, she did not control her strength properly. This was an accident, really an accident. But even though it was an accident, Gu Mingming did not feel apologetic. She had beaten up Bai Lan and Zhang Jinqing so badly. Even if she killed her now, it would not be enough to appease her hatred. What more breaking a wrist? After fiddling with the wooden stick for a while, Gu Mingming felt bored and directly threw it out of the windowsill. A wave of scolding came from downstairs. Gu Mingming thought, she might have hit the one on the lookout downstairs. This was just a coincidence, really? Even if she had aimed, she would not have been able to throw it so accurately. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly. Then she walked towards Bai Lan and Zhang Jinqing, wanting to undo the metal chains binding them. Bai Lan was so shocked by Gu Mingming's move that she could not speak for a long time. When she saw that crazy woman pouncing towards Gu Mingming, her heart almost jumped out of her throat. But seeing how Gu Mingming easily neutralized the woman's attack and flipped her over in the blink of an eye, Bai Lan finally heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Gu Mingming who was walking towards her and said, "You're really good. You hid your strength well." Even I was fooled. Gu Mingming smiled without saying a word. How was she going to explain? Say that she had transmigrated to another world and lived with werewolves, foxes and snakes for a few years, so her skills improved by leaps and bounds, comparable to Tarzan of the Apes? As long as Bai Lan was not crazy, she would not believe it. Gu Mingming had just touched the metal chains when a ruffian's voice sounded from behind her. Gu Mingming turned back. The scene was rather unbearable. The woman whose wrist was crushed by Gu Mingming was dragged behind a barrel of gasoline to perform some indescribable acts. The man would pinch her injured wrist from time to time and become even more excited as he listened to her miserable cries. The man who called out to Gu Mingming seemed to be used to it. But when he saw Gu Mingming's gaze, he scolded in a joking manner. "Tisk, can't you wait till you are done with your business before getting high? You can't even hold it in for a while, trash." "Brother Meng, it's time for him to eat," so he added some food. "Don't bother about them, let's get down to business." A lackey came forward and whispered into Brother Meng's ear. "Is it time for dinner?" "It's only 5 o'clock. What time for dinner?" Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment. Then she saw the strange expression on the man's face and understood. He was a drug addict. Brother Meng seemed to have expected this to happen. He ignored the lackeys and directly said to Gu Mingming, "Girl, we just want money, not lives. We have no intention of meddling in the grievances between you and that slut. We just want to make friends with you and borrow some money to spend." An old line of blackmail. TSK, what era was this? Korean dramas were already about amnesia, car accidents and leukemia. Yet they still wanted to make friends and borrow some money? Not even changing their tactics. Chapter 1642. Once Gu Mingming said that, Brother Meng started laughing. His laugh was rather wretched, as if he was laughing at Gu Mingming's innocence and ignorance. "What can I do? Your brother, still want to be friends with you." As Brother Meng said, he walked towards Gu Mingming. His face was clearly shriveled up, obviously influenced by the person beside him who was having a meal and had some lewd thoughts. Whether she could defeat this Brother Meng was one thing, but to fight against him was another. Gu Mingming was especially aware of how sensitive the noses of the few people in her family were. If she was stained with the scent of another man, they could destroy the earth. So Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly and said, "I really can't stop you if you want to die." With that, Gu Mingming punched her own collarbone hard, then grabbed her chest and twisted her ear. Brother Meng looked at Gu Mingming and thought that she was crazy, so he was stunned for a moment. But before he could react, a white light suddenly flashed beside Gu Mingming and 3 ferocious beasts appeared. A huge black wolf opened its mouth wide and bared its fangs at them. Its green eyes were filled with bloodlust and cruelty. A snake as thick as a train's skin crushed the ground of the villa and broke through the roof. Its huge body circled around the villa and all of them were trapped by the snake's body. Snake scales glowed faintly in green light all around them, and the sound of friction made one's hair stand on end. The few men were so scared that they fell to the ground. The more timid ones peed their pants on the spot. And that innocent little person was nestled in the tail of a white and fluffy fox. She looked like a soul-seducing dodgy, smiling like a flower as she watched Baigan's heart being gouged out. "See, I told you. My man doesn't like me to be friends with other men. You just had to throw yourself at him. It won't be easy even if he wants to spare your life." Gu Mingming stood up from Li's arms and patted his back. "Help me put them down first, then use the fox's seductive fragrance to make them forget what they saw today." Li nodded. Then he waved his large tail and transformed into a human in front of everyone, leaving only one hand that looked like a fox's claw. With a wave, the metal chains were cut apart like tofu skin that could not withstand a single blow. Leah quickly untied the ropes on Bai Lan and Zhang Jincheng, then followed Gu Mingming's instructions and used the fox's seductive fragrance to hypnotize them. Seeing that Leah had transformed into a human, Brother Meng was the first to react. He ran backwards in fear. "Mother! Monster!" Gu Mingming turned back and looked at the person who was still swaggering around. She chuckled and said, "Demon? You knew they were monsters, yet you still shouted? If you shout so loudly, do you think you can run away?" Brother Meng was as cowardly as a dog. He knelt down in front of Gu Mingming and kowtowed. "Great aunt, my dear great aunt. Spare me, we just wanted to get some money to spend. The idea was all that slut mo funds. She wanted to kidnap your friends to force you out. Then all the injuries on my friends were caused by her alone?" Gu Mingming looked down at him and asked coldly. Chapter 1643. Leah did not do anything else in Europe for the past week, just researching on medical skills. He knew that he had to wait for Gu Mingming to find him or call him over, but if he did nothing and just waited, he would go crazy, so he shifted all his attention to his studies. He did not allow himself to have a moment of leisure, which resulted in the results of his 7 days of study being very obvious. Coupled with his own medical foundation, he quickly diagnosed Zhang Jincheng's injuries. "It's not convenient for me to check on that little female, but this male, his leg is broken, 4 of his ribs are broken, his head is obviously injured, there are 27 external injuries on his body and 19 bruises. Using your words here, it's called a body with cuts and bruises all over, right?" Gu Mingming chuckled. "Good, very good." Gu Mingming waved at Elvis, calling him to her side. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck gently. "You don't have to do anything to these trash, even biting them to death would dirty your mouth." Yes. Great aunt, you're really right." Brother Ming had long been scared out of his wits by Elvis's green eyes. The pressure from staring at a ferocious beast was really not something to joke about. Gu Mingming pointed at the few people lying on the ground. "The few of you, listen up. Out of everyone here, I will only allow one person to leave alive. You guys, do as you see fit." Upon hearing that, the gangsters only took 2 to 3 seconds to react. They then immediately picked up their weapons and attacked the people around them. This was human. In front of a strong enemy, they would never unite as one. They did not even dare to attack Elvis, Snake and the rest. They immediately brandished their weapons and attacked their equally weak companions. Gu Mingming laughed coldly. She had respect for human lives, but survival of the fittest, the winner gets to eat alone. She was no longer the Gu Mingming who had just arrived in the beast world, who would value life regardless of right or wrong. "If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll eliminate them completely." The gangsters, who were in a frenzy of killing, each attack was more ruthless than the previous one. After about 20 minutes, the scene where there were more than 10 people just now had turned into a bloody mess. He looked at Gu Mingming and said, I survived, can I go now?" Gu Mingming recognized him. He was the lackey who had been following Brother Meng just now. He seemed to have a good relationship with Brother Meng, so Brother Meng trusted him very much. When the fight started, he even stuck his back to him, planning to work together to save his life. But Brother Meng definitely didn't expect that the first blow that landed on his head was from his lackey. Gu Mingming nodded and made a pleased gesture. The lackey took 2 steps back and stopped beside Snake's body. He turned around and looked at Gu Mingming with a face full of blood. Gu Mingming smiled. "Snake." Snake transformed into a human lazily and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He wiped her little face and said, "That's it? You've called out the 3 beast kings, but you won't let us take action?" Gu Mingming smiled and said, "They are too dirty, I can't bear to dirty your hands." Elvis also transformed into a human and carried her up from the ground. "I felt the pain from the mark and thought something had happened to you." Chapter 1644. Yes, summon. A special ability possessed by the partner of a beast king. When the female felt extreme fear, or when the mating mark was attacked, no matter where the partner of a beast king was, he would be summoned to the female's side by the mating mark. And this buff was activated when Gu Mingming stepped down as the messenger of the beast deity. Every messenger of the beast deity could leave behind a buff for the beast world when she stepped down to become a beast deity, and the one Wang Xiaoxin left behind back then allowed the males of a beast king level to enter the dreamland. It went without saying who she was waiting for. And Gu Mingming's buff was Li's idea. Because Wang Xiaoxin's departure took away all the additional abilities from Gu Mingming. She was a weak little female and needed protection, and the three of them were too afraid of any accidents happening to Gu Mingming. So Li's suggestion was unanimously approved by the males in the family, and Gu Mingming herself did not have any special thoughts, so she went along with them. But she did not expect that the ultimate move that she did not use in the beast world would be used on a few hooligans. But it did not matter, after all, she could save on 2 plane tickets. Elvis was appeased by Gu Mingming's "I miss you." He kissed Gu Mingming's little face, then pointed at the fainted group and asked, "How do we deal with them? They look like they are still breathing. Do we need to bite them to death?" Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "No need, just call the police." Elvis nodded and did not say a word, just accompanying Gu Mingming to sit at the side. At this moment, Gregory flew in from the window with a huge box in his hands. Gu Mingming looked at Gregory, confused. Gregory handed the box to Snake, who opened it to reveal that it was filled to the brim with US dollars. Gu Mingming was flabbergasted. "This?" Snake threw the box to the side, then stroked Gu Mingming's hair and said, "Since you don't wish to dirty our hands, then we can only let them receive the legal punishment of the human world. After all, those who offended my two men cannot be let off easily no matter what." "So," Snake gently pinched Gu Mingming's little face and said, "They kidnapped Bai Lan and Zhang Jinqing. The police can verify the process by investigating the surveillance cameras along the way. Then he would call you and threaten you to come alone. This is also very simple. Just check the call records. I called you here to extort money from you. After all, you are the CEO of Monsieur Group and the future daughter-in-law of the royal family of F country. You are very valuable. That's why I'm here to deliver the money. It's a pity that they couldn't divide the spoils evenly and had internal strife." Gu Mingming laughed softly. "This box of money is the evidence." Snakel smiled and nodded. "My father made it very clear before he left. Whoever dares to bully you will be challenging the dignity of the F country's royal family and destroying the diplomatic relations between the two countries." Gu Mingming said, "What if they tell others that they saw you guys transform?" Snake's eyes flashed and he laughed. "If this gets out, people will only think that they overdosed on drugs and hallucinated, right? Tell me, if you were a police officer, would you believe the crazy words of a kidnapper and drug addict?" Chapter 1645. To be honest, as a modern local, Gu Mingming was not as knowledgeable as an outsider like Snake. Or rather, Gu Mingming was a commoner living at the bottom of society. Even if she was as scheming as Snake, she would not be able to produce such a huge box of US dollars as evidence. She would also not be able to use the word diplomatic relations to force the government to settle this matter according to their wishes. All the hooligans would not be able to escape from forced detoxification and jail time. But Gu Mingming's gaze landed on the woman who was curled up behind the barrel of gasoline. Her body was covered in bruises and her clothes could not cover her body. Her messy hair and bloodstains at the corner of her lips were all signs of what she had just experienced. The wrist that was crushed by Gu Mingming was dangling at a weird angle on her knee. Her pupils were dilated and it was obvious that she was frightened by the scene just now. Come to think of it, if it was anyone else they would also be frightened. Didn't Gu Mingming faint on the spot the first time she saw Snake's original body? As for this woman, she had seen the main bodies of all 3 orcs at once without any warning. She was already very courageous to just stand there blankly and not die on the spot. "You don't remember her?" Snake followed Gu Mingming's gaze and asked. Gu Mingming did not answer Snake's question. Instead, she turned to look at Snake and asked in confusion, "Should I know her?" Snake chuckled and said, "You must not have been paying attention when you were watching television with Wang Xiaoxin." Gu Mingming's face was wooden and she did not reply. Snake said, "During the gathering after the press conference, the one who locked you in the toilet and splashed a basin of water on you." Yes, Snake had completely forgotten about the incident where Gu Mingming straddled her and slapped her. He only remembered that this woman bullied his two men. Now that Snake mentioned it, Gu Mingming remembered that it had indeed happened. But She was the one who provoked me first. I only slapped her a few times. Did she have to kidnap Bai Lan to kill me? Gu Mingming was confused. Snake took out his cell phone from his pocket and opened a few popular news websites. He searched for news related to the MO group, and passed it to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming swiped her cell phone twice and her facial features turned on the emoji pack mode. She grimaced as she read a few of the headlines, then looked at Snake and asked, "These were made by you?" Snake shook his head, determined not to take the blame. "It's not me, it's the assistant who did it. But the result is still satisfactory. This assistant can be promoted, get a raise and get a good car." Gu Mingming rubbed her temples, feeling a headache coming on. How should I put it? It wasn't that she was a saint, but at the end of the day, this young lady of the MO family was just a little arrogant and willful. She had poured a basin of water over her head, that was all. Moreover, she immediately fought back. Strictly speaking, she really did not suffer any losses. It was indeed wrong of MO Fun to capture Bai Lan and Zhang Jincheng and beat them up, but it was also because of Snake's ruthlessness. No one could say who was right and who was wrong. It was a complete mess. Chapter 1646. You want me to repay evil with good? But Taming, repay evil with good, how can I repay good? Snake's face was cold. He was not willing to let off anyone who dared to provoke Gu Mingming. He could not even bear to touch a finger on the person he cherished dearly, so how could she be bullied by others? Yes, the one in the toilet was not the real Gu Mingming, but an illusory image. But the illusory image was also Snake's illusory image. She was the treasure he cherished dearly, and anyone who dared to touch her would die. Elvis was also in the illusion when Gu Mingming was drenched in water. He had accompanied Gu Mingming to the end, so he knew what had happened. When Snake reminded Gu Mingming who that woman was, Elvis's face darkened. The two males who had been fighting for the position of the first partner for so many years actually reached a high level of tacit understanding and unity on this matter. I feel that Snake is right, Xiaomeng. Being kind to your enemy is being cruel to yourself. If you don't remove the roots, the weeds will grow again. Gu Mingming suddenly felt very helpless. The cause of this incident was just MO Fan being cheap. She clearly had a fiancé but still had her sights set on Snake, so she drenched Gu Mingming with water. This kind of method used by junior high school students to ostracize their female classmates could not even be considered as childish, let alone bullying. Even if they really bullied Gu Mingming, the MO family had already paid a sufficient price. If they continued to force her, the news tomorrow would probably be old Master MO jumping off a building. Gu Mingming cast her gaze at Leah. Leah smiled knowingly and waved his large tail. Did you all not understand Gu Mingming's meaning? Elvis and Snake glanced sideways at Leah. They had no choice even if they did not want to admit it. Among the four males in the family, Leah was the one who was the best at understanding Gu Mingming's thoughts. Leah swayed his large tail as he walked to Gu Mingming's side. As he placed his tail into her arms, he smiled slyly at MO Fun and said, "That MO family should have been completely suppressed by you to the point where they have nowhere else to go, unable to withstand a single blow, and are just waiting for death? They must have lost all hope and given up struggling, waiting for death to come." Snake nodded. The Fan family was the last hope of the MO family, but what Fan Yuanbin did was too extreme. That was practically the last straw that broke the camel's back. Now the MO family was just waiting for death as Leah had described. Even if there was still half a day of hope, MO Fan wouldn't dare to do such a thing. This was clearly an act of mutual destruction. Stupid but also sad. Leah shrugged his shoulders as if he had thought of something interesting. He continued, "They want to die, so you let them die." Could it be that after following Mingming as a beast god for a few years, you've really become a god who loves the world and is compassionate? Snake paused for a moment and suddenly smiled. The corners of his lips curled upwards as he said, "You bullied my Taming. Do you want to die? How can it be that cheap?" Elvis did not understand and just frowned at the two sinister people in front of him. After a moment of silence, he said, "You two are in charge of coming up with ideas, I am only in charge of executing." Snake looked at Elvis and said, "You don't have to do anything, that little assistant of mine is quite capable." Chapter 1647. When the police arrived, they saw the floor littered with hooligans on their last breaths, MO Fun who was in a state of rags, Gu Mingming who was safe and sound in Snake's arms, and the bodyguard Gregory who was sent by the F Kingdom's prince to protect the future princess, who had been exposed in various media reports in the early morning. Bai Lan and Zhang Jincheng were escorted by Elvis and Leah to the hospital, where there were people arranged by Snake to receive them. Actually, it was not a big problem even without Elvis and Leah, but they were summoned by Gu Mingming using the mating mark and did not have any records of entering the country. It would be troublesome if they appeared suddenly, so they accompanied by Lan and Zhang Jinqing to the hospital. Gu Mingming followed the script that Snake had arranged and explained it to the police. The police were all scared out of their wits. However, Gu Mingming changed Emofun's part slightly. From the kidnapper to the helper. She said that Emofun was bullied by the hooligans because he wanted to protect her, and if not for Emofun, she would have been the one being bullied. So in the end, Emofun was not brought away by the police, but was sent back to the Emo family by Snake's men. And the only lackey who left the unfinished building alive, became the wanted target of the police, and was identified as the mastermind of this kidnapping. He was the scapegoat, but he could not shake off this blame. Because he had indeed participated in the kidnapping, and it was not the first time he had killed someone, so it was not wrong for him to be wanted. And the video of Emofun kidnapping by Lan and Zhang Jinqing was also sent back to the Emo family. These videos were all taken down by Snake, and other than Snake, the police did not have a single one in their hands. Only Gu Mingming and Snake's confession could be used as evidence. There was no choice because the words of those hooligans after they woke up could not be trusted. What giant wild wolf, Snake as thick as a trained skin, Tiske, their brains were really full of holes from all the drugs they drank. None of them were normal. In the end, they were all sent to the drug rehabilitation center for forced detoxification. And old Master Emo did not even wait for the next day. That very night, he led a group of men and women from the Emo family to the villa Gu Mingming was staying in. Snake did not seem to be surprised at all. He just sat on the main seat of the sofa like a king, playing with Gu Mingming's fingers out of boredom, leaving the entire Emo family standing in front of him at a loss of what to do. With a plop, old Master Mo's body bent and he directly knelt on the ground, saying, "Since you're willing to bury that vile spawn's deeds and protect her by sending her back to the Emo clan, it's clear that you don't really intend to exterminate the Emo clan. As long as you can leave a way out for our family no matter what you want to do, we won't say anything." Gu Mingming felt extremely uncomfortable being kneeled by someone who could be her grandfather. She wanted to help Grandfather Emo up, but Snake held her waist and whispered into her ear, "In front of me, he doesn't have the right to flaunt his seniority. You are my woman. You have a very high status." Gu Mingming kept quiet. Snake should be 2,000 years old by now. In front of him, old Master Emo, who was over 70 years old, could be called a little fresh meat. But this little fresh meat had the face of an old man. Gu Mingming still felt uncomfortable. Chapter 1648. The Emo family? The Emo family was now in a terrible mess, riddled with holes. Snakel said he wanted something that others might not even want even if they offered it to others? Was it clear that he was willing to let the Emo family off? Elder Emo was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly got his family members to help him up from the ground. Only when Elder Emo stood up did the rest of the Emo family dare to stand up as well. Elder Emo sat on the sofa. His 70 years of life had given him a wealth of experience. Even though he could not see through the thoughts of this man in front of him, he could tell that he doted on and accommodated that young girl. So the Emo family could be revived and receive this amnesty was probably because that young girl was magnanimous and was willing to let the Emo family off this once. Without saying anything else, Elder Emo smiled at Gu Mingming and nodded. It was a small action, but it was obvious how much gratitude he was showing. Snakel did not like other men to size up Gu Mingming, even if they were like a withered old cucumber. She was only 70 years old and this kind of fresh meat was very dangerous. He had to guard her with all his might. Who knew what was wrong with Gu Mingming that she would suddenly like ugly and wrinkled men? Frowning, Snakel glared at Elder Emo and said, "Since you have sat down, does that mean you agree to my purchase of the Emo family?" "Agree, of course I agree." Elder Emo did not dare to object. "Then is there anything else?" Snakel was obviously asking them to leave. Elder Emo was taken aback. This verbal agreement was enough? Would Snakel suddenly change his mind tomorrow and not want the Emo family anymore? This young man, he always did whatever he wanted. What kind of person was Snakel? Elder Mo's thoughts were as clear to him as the monk's scar on his head. As long as one was not blind, he would be able to see it clearly. "My assistant will bring a team of lawyers to the Emo family tomorrow to negotiate," Snakel said calmly. Elder Emo then relaxed and smiled apologetically. "Since that's the case, we shall not disturb you any further. Goodbye, goodbye." Snakel gestured for them to leave but did not even have the intention to stand up. After the Emo family left the villa, Snake didn't let go of Gu Mingming and just carried her upstairs. As he went upstairs, he sent a message to his assistant. 2 sentences, take over the MO group tomorrow morning, and first floor of the villa, new sofa set. Yes, how could he let his Taming sit on a sofa that another man had sat on? Gu Mingming's room was in the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. Snake had predicted from the start that Gu Mingming would not agree to stay in his room when she moved in, so he just emptied the master bedroom and stayed in the 2nd bedroom. However, anyway, he would not stay for long. After all, he had planned to stay in Gu Mingming's room from the start. Now that they had become partners, it was even more justifiable for him to avoid it. He naturally carried Gu Mingming back to the main nest. His eyebrows twitched. Initially, when he designed such a spacious master bedroom, it was not to accommodate so many people. Leah laid sideways on the side of the king-size bed. He swayed his tail seductively and smiled at Gu Mingming with a beauty that could cause the downfall of nations and people. He opened his mouth and said, "Mingming, this bed has your scent, it smells so good." Gu Mingming blushed strangely. It was just a normal sentence, why did Leah make it sound so ambiguous? Aside from the topic. Chapter 1649. Mingming, you have given me the cold shoulder for a week, aren't you going to comfort me? Mm. Leah used his elbow to support his head and reached out a finger to beckon at Gu Mingming. That coquettish and charming look was like the reincarnation of Daji, destined to captivate the masses with his bewitching looks. After seeing that face for so many years, Gu Mingming was still not immune to it. Wiping away her saliva, Gu Mingming pounced at him and hugged him. She rubbed her face against Li's chest and said, "How is it a week, didn't we transmigrate together in the morning?" Leah pinched Gu Mingming's face and said, "Snake made some minor adjustments to our transmigration points. Although we transmigrated together, we arrived here a week earlier than you guys." Gu Mingming turned back to look at Snake and wanted to ask why. But before she could open her mouth, Snake replied, "They need time to adapt to the life here, so as to avoid causing you any trouble." Gu Mingming did not understand. Li's chin rested lightly on Gu Mingming's furry little head. He wrapped his large arms around Gu Mingming's waist and wrapped his fluffy and white large tail around Gu Mingming's waist for her to hug. When Gu Mingming was in his arms, Li's voice was always lazy and a little hoarse and casual. He said, "Snake was a normal person in the past, but now he, Elvis and Gregory are complete bodies that transmigrated from the beast world. The most basic thing is, the 4 of us cannot enter the hospital. So this week, I improved the medical skills I learned from the television, to ensure that I can handle any special situation." Gu Mingming glanced sideways at Leah with some heartache. Her small hands caressed Li's face and she said, "Actually, you don't have to work so hard." She did not want to admit it, but this was just an illusion. If there was an emergency, they could leave anytime. That grassland was now their stability in the modern world. Leah knew what Gu Mingming was thinking. He caressed the back of Gu Mingming's head with his fingertips and kissed the top of her head. He said, "If this place can make your life more comfortable, there's nothing wrong with us staying here. As long as you are here, to me, anywhere is home." "Thank you." Gu Mingming was extremely touched. She rubbed her little face against Li's chest and whimpered like a kitten. Silly girl. Even Leah himself did not realize how much love and indulgence was contained in those 2 words. At that time he thought that his heart would never beat again. He thought that there was only scheming, hatred, and revenge left in his life. It was this little thing who stumbled into his trap and turned his world upside down. It was also because of this that the sunlight shone into the dark corner where he was curled up, and that cold heart gradually resumed beating. Only he, who had crawled out of the darkness, knew how much he longed for warmth and light. Especially after losing her, he would never forget the feeling of falling from the warm sun into an ice cave. At that time, every tear she shed and every heartless word she said was a warning to him for the rest of his life. He would never let her suffer again. That was his promise to himself. Elvis scooped Gu Mingming out from Li's arms and chuckled. "I am the first partner. With me around, when was it your turn to hug Xiaoming?" Aside from the topic. Chapter 1650. Leah rolled his eyes at Elvis and at Sundra Manor and snorted. Without saying anything else, he rolled around on the bed and hugged Gu Mingming's pillow to take a deep breath. Then he looked at Gu Mingming with a dubious smile. Elvis placed Gu Mingming on the chair beside the dressing table and looked at her reflection in the mirror. "I saw it in Europe, do you like it?" Gu Mingming tilted her head and saw a European bronze wooden comb in Snake's hands. She smiled and asked, "Why did you think of giving me a wooden comb?" Elvis said, "When we went to Sauter to participate in the beauty pageant the first year, You said you wanted a rhinoceros horn comb. It's a pity you didn't even make one after breaking off so many beast horns from Oriton. If Elvis had not mentioned this, Gu Mingming would have long forgotten about it. But looking at Elvis's expression, it was obvious that he had kept it in his heart and felt that he had disappointed Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming smiled and took the comb from Elvis. It's very pretty. I like it very much. Thank you. Let me help you comb your hair? Elvis's gaze was gentle. Gu Mingming nodded and sat down obediently. Snake leaned against the door and watched Elvis comb Gu Mingming's hair. He asked with a faint smile, "Did you buy this comb? Do you have money?" Gu Mingming clearly felt Elvis pause in his combing action. He suddenly looked up at Snake and then back at Gu Mingming. His face was filled with confusion. Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. But, Elvis, don't tell me you took it from someone else without paying? That's right, how could there be a concept of buying and selling in the beast world? If I like it, I will just snatch it. If you are not happy, you can snatch it back. Elvis shook his head and said, the money was paid by someone else. Someone else? Gu Mingming caught onto an important point and asked in confusion. Elvis nodded and said, there was a male who had a lot of these combs. I challenged him and said that if I won, he would give me this comb, but he rejected. And then? Gu Mingming's heart was in her throat. How could a modern man withstand a beating from a beast king like Elvis? It would be troublesome if someone died because of a comb. Elvis said, then another male walked over and said that if I fought with his men regardless of the outcome, he would give me this comb. I agreed. Gu Mingming's face was filled with confusion. There were still such warmongers in the modern world? Fight me and I'll give you a wooden comb? What kind of godly development was this? But Snake just smiled, looking as if he knew it all too well. He asked, lost or won? Elvis frowned and said, the males in this world can't take a beating. Gu Mingming stood up immediately and grabbed onto Elvis's arm with both her hands, asking, hubby, did you beat someone to death? Elvis shook his head and said, he didn't die, he just broke an arm. Did you show your original form? Gu Mingming asked. Elvis shook his head and said, he punched me, so I grabbed his wrist and wanted to throw him out. The moment I threw him, his arm broke. I don't know either, he looked quite strong, but why are his bones so soft? One pull and it broke. Chapter 1651. It was normal for males to break an arm or a leg during a fight, so Elvis did not take it to heart at first. But after Leah found out about it, he told him that the rules of this world were different from the beast world, and that he might bring trouble to Gu Ming by beating people up like that. Just like what Leah said, this was the world that Gu Mingming was familiar with. She lived more comfortably here, so he and Leah hoped that she could stay here as she pleased, and not be forced to end this illusion because of them. Gu Mingming turned back to look at Snake, asking, Kel? Snake chuckled and rubbed Gu Mingming's head, saying, it's alright, didn't he just fight a boxing match in the black market? It's common for people to be beaten to death in this kind of underground competition, so no one would pursue it. Moreover, country is my territory. As long as he doesn't beat the president to death in public, I can settle everything else. Gu Mingming sweated. So, what Snake meant was that it was not that the president could not be beaten to death as long as it was not in public. Snake looked at Gu Mingming's darkened face and could not help but smile, saying, alright, even if he beats the president to death in public, I will definitely protect him, is that alright? Don't worry. Gu Mingming roared in her heart, you are making me even more worried, alright? No normal person would beat the president to death, alright? If you support them like this, aren't you afraid that Elvis will be even more unbridled in the future? Xiaoming, don't worry. In the future, I won't beat people up so easily. Elvis coaxed Gu Mingming. I'm afraid that's not up to you. Snake walked to Gu Mingming with a faint smile, and placed his phone on top of Gu Mingming's makeup box. The phone was playing a video, and the scene was of an underground boxing match. Although his face was blurred out, Gu Mingming could recognize that one of the two people on the stage was Elvis. Gu Mingming was confused. Snakle smiled as he kept his phone and said, the one whose arm was broken by Elvis is the most popular boxing champion in the past 2 years. People call him Boss Black Boxing. Countless boxers have died in his hands. But today his right arm was crippled by a light toss from Elvis. But the boss behind the scenes is not a righteous person. He has no intention of seeking justice for the Black Fist boss. Instead, he offered a huge reward to find out Elvis's whereabouts. It is obvious that he wants to groom him well. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, no, I don't want Elvis to be associated with this kind of person. Snake rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and said, alright, Then I will suppress this news and guarantee that Elvis will not find this person on their information channels. Wait. Elvis frowned as he took Snake's phone and swiped it twice. His brows lightly touched as he stared at it for a long time before turning to look at Gu Mengmeng. In a negotiating tone he said, "Xiaoming, can you let me fight another round?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis in confusion and asked, "Why?" "If you want to exercise your muscles, Snake and Leah are good sparring partners. No matter how strong those people in the underground black market are, they are not enough for you to fight." Elvis shook his head and said, "No, I don't want to fight, I just want this." Chapter 1652. The boss of the black boxing boss took out an extremely exquisite comb. It was said to be one of the dowries of the first queen of F country. It was inlaid with the world's most perfect ruby, the blazing sun. It was said that this comb could make the woman who owned it extremely blissful. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. A comb could make someone extremely blissful? Why don't you say that the ruby on it is from De Beers Kimberley? A ruby is everlasting, one will be passed down forever. Xiaoming. Elvis looked serious. Yes, he had obviously eaten this Amway. No. Gu Mengmeng put on a straight face and said, "I only need one wooden comb. I don't have the hobby of collecting combs. Moreover, I only have one head and this much hair. How many combs can I use?" "Hubby, listen to me. This person is obviously lying to you. If you go for this comb this time, he will use some other gimmick comb to entice you to fight again. Fight after fight, it will never end." Elvis pursed his lips. If it could make Xiaoming happier, it was really nothing to fight. "Hubby, you are different from the people here. If you expose yourself too many times, you will definitely attract attention. What if your identity is exposed?" "I won't." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face. He coaxed and begged, "I promise I won't let anyone discover my identity. I still want to stay here and accompany you to live the life you like. But Xiaoming, I am a male. I can't hide at home forever and wait for others to provide for me. I have to have my own ability to protect you." Gu Mengmeng choked and could not say a word. Snake had worked hard here for 19 years. With the noble bloodline of the royal family, his social status and wealth naturally went without saying. When Leah was in the beast world, he had already learned many years of medical skills through television. He was naturally intelligent and exceptionally gifted in medical skills. She believed that it would not take long for him to achieve outstanding achievements in the medical field. While Elvis, as the first partner in the family, did not have his own career. She had neglected a man's pride. Be it in the beast world or the modern world, living off a woman was a disgrace to a man. But Gu Mengmeng still felt uneasy. Fighting in an underground fight sounded dangerous no matter how she heard it. Elvis smiled and said, "I have the power of a beast king. No one in this world can hurt me." Snake placed his hand on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder lightly and said, "With the royal family protecting him, no one would dare to make things difficult for him." Leah also swayed his large tail and sat by the bed. He smiled at Gu Mengmeng in the mirror and said, "If I really meet a strong opponent one day and get my arms or legs broken, then I can use them for clinical trials." "That's pretty good." Alright, the three of them were on the same team. Gu Mengmeng looked at Gregory, who had not said a word. Gregory only smiled and said, "I'm just a guardian beast. I don't have the right to question the first partner's decision." Gu Mengmeng sighed and cupped Elvis's face with both hands. "Hubby, you have to promise me not to get hurt." "All right." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and this matter was settled. The next morning, Gu Mengmeng packed her things and headed straight to the hospital to visit Bailan and Zhang Jincheng. It was not convenient for Elvis and Leah to appear, so Snake and Gregory accompanied her. Out of topic. Chapter 1653. Girl? The moment the door to the ward opened, Bailan saw Gu Mengmeng. She immediately threw away the apple she was chewing halfway and opened her arms, waiting for Gu Mengmeng to deliver herself to her. Snake was unwilling but had no choice. He could only let go of Gu Mengmeng and watch as Gu Mengmeng threw herself into someone else's arms. "How are you? Does it still hurt?" Gu Mengmeng hugged Bailan, then pulled a pillow over for her to lean on. Bailan laughed heartlessly and said, "I'm fine," but he, glancing sideways at Zhang Jincheng, Bailan blushed and said, "He agreed to my proposal. 2 years later, he will have a graduation certificate on his left hand and a marriage certificate on the right. After taking off his academic robes, he will directly wear a wedding dress." "What?" Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded and completely out of it. Bailan chuckled and said, "Sorry girl, I might have to abandon you. This man is too stupid. If I don't keep a close eye on him, he will be snatched away by others. So, can you understand me? Mm. Gu Mingming burst out laughing and said, "You are really too much. You are the one proposing? Why don't you let him do it?" Bailan glanced at Zhang Jincheng's knees and said, "In this lifetime, I will never let him be afraid of his knees touching the ground again." Gu Mingming did not understand and turned to look at Snake. Snake said, "When those people kidnapped them yesterday, Zhang Jincheng knelt on the ground and used his body to protect Bailan. After that, Emofen waved the rod in front of you and broke Zhang Jincheng's calf bone. I have already contacted the best doctor and he will be able to walk normally in the future. But when it rains, it will definitely hurt." Gu Mingming lowered her eyes and held Bailan's hand, saying, "Bailan, I'm sorry, it's all because of me that you guys have been implicated." "Silly girl, what are you saying?" Bailan pinched Gu Mingming. "If it wasn't for you, I would never have believed that someone would risk her life for me and not abandon me even under such circumstances. I've been strong for 19 years and this is the first time I've been protected. Girl, if what Emofen did is related to you, then I should thank you. If it wasn't for this, I might have missed out on the only idiot in my life who values me more than her own life." "But..." Gu Mingming looked at Bailan and Zhang Jincheng's white bandages and felt guilty. Bailan raised her arm and smiled. "You're talking about this? Come on, you're so pretentious. I have a bad temper and I spend more time in the hospital than in the dormitory. This injury is nothing." Gu Mingming was speechless. That year, when Bailan was beaten up to the point of asking for her salary, she had said the same thing to her. Gu Mingming tugged at Bailan's hand. "Since you have decided to get married, you cannot be so hot-tempered in the future. You have to think about your man too, don't you? Without you, what will he do?" Bailan glanced at Zhang Jincheng, smiled and said, "I understand." Zhang Jincheng, who had remained silent from the start, frowned at Bailan's smile. "Bailan, your proposal does not count." Chapter 1654. Gu Mingming was really at a loss. Were these two really going to get married? Why did she feel like Bailan was going to snatch an innocent man? Zhang Jincheng was not annoyed. He waited for Bailan to finish yelling before narrowing his eyes. "Bailan, you're sitting on my wound. It's a little painful." "Ah?" Bailan was shocked. She immediately stood up from Zhang Jincheng's body and glared down at him. "Pain? What pain? You're going to break off the marriage and leave me. Why would I care if it hurts?" Although she said that, she did not sit back down. Her careful look was clearly because she was afraid of touching Zhang Jincheng's wound again. Zhang Jincheng seemed to be used to her tough mouth but soft heart. He didn't mind that she was standing high up on his bed and looking down at him. He was willing to look up at her. "When I recover, I'll still be the one to propose," Zhang Jincheng said gently. "I told you before, I don't have much more than others. But what other women have, I, Zhang Jincheng's wife, cannot lack. Marriage only happens once in a lifetime. You have to make me beg you to marry me. Only then will you have enough confidence to put on airs when you come to my house. If someone in my family makes things difficult for you when I'm not at home, then you can confidently yell, 'It was your Zhang Jincheng who shamelessly begged me to marry him.' Only then will you be unyielding and won't be bullied, understand?" Bailan's anger instantly subsided. She cleared her throat and jumped down from Zhang Jincheng's bed. Then, she quietly sat back on the bed and covered herself with the blankets. With a demure expression she said, If you want to beg, just do it. Why are you so fierce?" Gu Mingming burst out laughing. Zhang Jincheng fierce? From the beginning to the end, the other party had been speaking softly and softly, while Bailan, on the other hand, was like a female bandit, straddling him like she was going to beat him up. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have been fierce to you." Zhang Jincheng apologized without any principles. Gu Mingming was shocked. In the beast world, it was normal for males to compromise like this. But this was the modern world. Other than saying, "I can't do anything if you think that way," and the all-purpose golden phrase, "drink more hot water," guys could actually do such things. "Oh." Gu Mingming clutched her forehead and looked at Snake, who had knocked her on the head, her eyes filled with accusation. Snake clenched his teeth and scooped Gu Mingming up. "The visit is over. Let's go back to school." "Ha!" Gu Mingming protested. "Didn't you say that with you around, no one would dare to record me for skipping class? I still have to accompany Bailan." "What's there to accompany? Does she need you to accompany her? You big third wheel." Snake carried Gu Mingming away without giving her a chance to explain. Gu Mingming thought about it. Snake was right, he really did not need her to accompany him now. After leaving the hospital, Snake shoved Gu Mingming into the car. He did not start the car, but stared at Gu Mingming with a dark face, as if he wanted to stare 2 holes into her face. What's wrong? Gu Mingming felt guilty for no reason. Are you regretting it? Snake narrowed his eyes. Danger filled the entire carriage. What? Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Snake said, if I hadn't snatched your love letter back then, Zhang Jinqing would be your boyfriend now, right? Seeing how considerate he is towards Bailan, you regret letting him off, right? Gu Mingming held her forehead. The sorrow in her heart flowed like a river. Chapter 1655. Don't play around with your friend's wife. Don't touch your best friend's man. Gu Mingming was tired of how her man could not be picky about the brand, origin, year and quality when he got jealous. And Gu Mingming's explanation clearly did not satisfy Snake. He squinted his eyes and emitted a dangerous aura. After a while he suddenly laughed again. With a cold voice he said, Bailan better be your best friend forever and never break up with Zhang Jinqing, or else I will eat him up. Gu Mingming was taken aback and only understood Snake's train of thought after a long while. Don't touch my best friend's man, so as long as Zhang Jinqing was still Bailan's man, Gu Mingming would never touch him. At the same time, if Zhang Jinqing was no longer Bailan's man, or if Bailan and Gu Mingming were no longer best friends, then Gu Mingming would touch Zhang Jinqing. Gu Mingming sighed. It was really unreasonable to talk to a man who got jealous. Don't worry, my friendship with Bailan will last forever. She and Zhang Jinqing will also grow old together. Snake's lips curled up and he said, I hope so. Bailan and Zhang Jinqing's physique was very good and Snake had specially arranged for the most authoritative doctor from F country to come over. This action alarmed Snake's parents in F country and they called Snake's assistant to find out that Gu Mingming had been kidnapped and threatened. They almost fainted from the shock and old mistress cried and wiped her tears, saying that she would arrange for a private jet to fly to S city to bring her precious daughter-in-law back to F country to protect her. Poor parents, although their son was outstanding since young and had a surly and unapproachable character, but he was still their son. After 19 years of coldness, their son finally became more amiable towards them because of this daughter-in-law. God knows how much they treasured this daughter-in-law. Afterwards, Snake sent a video call to his family with a cold face and told them clearly that don't come. Old mistress was about to cry but Gu Mingming snatched Snake's phone and coaxed her gently, saying that she was really fine and not to worry. She even promised to fly to F country to see them once the holidays started. Only then did she finally calm down. After more than 2 months, Bailan and Zhang Jinqing finally left the hospital. It was said that it would take 100 days for one's bones and tendons to recover, but Zhang Jinqing had played basketball since he was young, so his physique was much better than the average person. Of course, he could not be compared to perverts like Elvis and Snake. They were not human. The doctor said that Zhang Jinqing could walk normally with this leg, but he definitely couldn't touch basketball anymore. Jumping and other strenuous activities could not be done again. In the future, he would have to pay special attention to his health and not get hurt again. Then 2 months later, Gu Mingming received a call from Zhang Jinqing out of the blue. Without saying anything, he shamelessly begged her to keep Bailan in the dormitory for the next 3 days and not let her go out. Then at 8 p.m. he had to bring her to the basketball court. Gu Mingming frowned, realizing that things were not so simple. After experiencing so many things in the beast world, Zhang Jinqing's thoughts were really too obvious. Chapter 1656. Facing 4 pairs of cunning eyes, Gu Mingming truly felt wronged. Strictly speaking, she was not the one who wrote this love letter. When this love letter was handed to Zhang Jinqing, she was still lying beside Wang Xiaoxin, calling her daddy. But now she felt like she could not explain herself. Gu Mingming sighed and said, I feel that Zhang Jinqing might be calling me to propose to Bailan. Why would he call you to propose to Bailan? Elvis frowned and asked directly. Before Gu Mingming could reply, Leah laughed and said, who knows? Maybe Bailan is just a cover and he actually wants to propose to Gu Mingming? With that, the temperature in the room dropped to the North Pole. Gu Mingming hurriedly waved her hands and said, I swear, shut up. Snake said coldly and angrily, the first rule of the family, you are not allowed to swear. Now you want to break your own family rule for a Zhang Jinqing? Gu Mingming choked, meeting Snake's eyes. She could not say the word swear. Cutting open her chest to take her gallbladder, how heavy was that oath? Sneaking a glance at the silent Gregory, Gu Mingming's heart sank when she met Gregory's sorrowful eyes. Broken wings and blind eyes, Oaths were not good things, she should not have said it. You don't have to care about me, I am not in a position to express my opinion. Gregory's body shook indiscernibly. Gu Mingming was immediately drowned in guilt. Gregory meant that he did not agree, but he did not have the right to disagree. As a guardian, he did not even have the right to be jealous. Xiaoming. Elvis clenched his fists so tightly that his bones were cracking. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence. If you want a partner who is the same as you, I can accept it. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis's cheeks bulging. His gums were probably about to bleed from clenching so hard. Gu Mingming was really on the verge of breaking down. Heaven knew that she and Zhang Jinqing were as innocent as an unopened A4 paper. That Gu Mingming, who liked Zhang Jinqing, was not her. What a generous first mate. However, a male pet like me doesn't have that kind of magnanimity. I was born to be jealous and petty. I can't allow anyone to be more pampered than me by Meng Meng. So, if you want to mate with Meng Meng, sure, but you have to defeat me first. Leah raised his head, giving off a, if he's the only one, attitude. Sure. Gu Mingming slapped her thigh and said, how about this, if Zhang Jinqing doesn't propose to Bailan but to me 3 days later, you guys will eat him up on the spot and I will help you prepare wax Amy, how about that? Snake, Leah, Elvis and Gregory exchanged glances with one another, before curling their lips in satisfaction and nodding their heads in agreement. Gu Mingming finally heaved a sigh of relief. But Bailan is my friend after all. This is probably the only time she will propose in her lifetime. So if Zhang Jinqing needs your help, Akel, don't shirk away. Try your best to help him, okay? Snake smiled and said, if the person he proposes to is Bailan, no one in this world would want him to succeed more than the 4 of us. So don't worry, we will grant your request. This matter was settled. Chapter 1657. Your snake is suddenly so easygoing today? They actually let you out to accompany me? Bailan looked at Gu Mingming, who had suddenly asked her out to go shopping. She smiled playfully. What? Have your 2 icebergs finally collided and merged into one? Gu Mingming blushed. She now seriously felt that it was Bailan who had led her astray when she had first arrived in the beast world. She pinched Bailan's waist and said, Snake is the real CEO of Monster Company after all, doesn't he have to work every day? Bailan, however, did not believe it. She took a sip of her hazelnut frappuccino and said, this semester, ever since the 2 of you started dating in a high-profile manner, when have you ever seen him neglect you because of work? The person who wants to tie you to his belt every day suddenly gives you freedom. Tiske, there must be a reason for this abnormality. Although I don't like him, from an objective point of view, he's still a good boyfriend. Silly girl, you have to be more vigilant. Don't let others take advantage of you. If that happens, you won't even have a place to cry. Gu Mingming was really speechless. Snake and the rest were busy helping Zhang Jinqing arrange for his marriage proposal, but the one being proposed to was actually suspecting him of cheating. Gu Mingming could not betray Zhang Jinqing, so she could only laugh dryly. What are you afraid of, have you forgotten? Snake has already transferred the Monster Company to me. I am now a true rich lady in S City. Bailan chuckled and said, all right, then my dream has come true. Gu Mingming tilted her head and smiled. What dream? Bailan, one day when our girl becomes a rich woman, she'll come back and support me. Gu Mingming laughed heartily and hugged Bailan's shoulders. All right, your dream has come true. Today I'll take care of you for a day. I'll bring you out to eat and buy, how about that? Bailan pretended to be bashful as she leaned against Gu Mingming's shoulder, pinching her throat as she said, all right. The 2 of them immediately had goosebumps. They rubbed their shoulders, smiled, and walked into the mall arm in arm. They really began to buy all kinds of things. If it was in the past, Gu Mingming might not have been able to swipe Snake's card like that. But now, although they were not protected by modern marriage laws, but a man who could die twice for her. He was willing to give his life to her, how could he not be willing to spend money? Moreover, it was just an illusion. Why not to satisfy herself and Bailan? From skincare products to clothes, shoes, hats and handbags, Gu Mingming and Bailan only stopped when they could no longer carry everything. Meanwhile, at the other end of the basketball court, Snake's face brightened up as the spending records kept appearing on his phone. Gushin. I had to go. Go. Down. 1. 5. Bailan and 2. Looking at the things she and Bailan were carrying, Gu Mingming pretended to be tired and said, there are too many things, we can't carry them all. Bye-bye. Lan? King bye. Bailan nodded in deep agreement. one. But, one. I but. But I, but I. But. Yes, but I bought too many things so I can't carry them all. Can you come and pick us up? Chapter 1658. We are at Zhujian? Snake answered directly. How did you know? Gu Mingming asked in confusion. Snake smiled and answered, there's a note on the text message about the place of consumption. Gu Mingming was at a loss for words. She smiled and said, all right, we will wait for you at the entrance. Snake responded, then left some instructions to Zhang Jincheng before driving off. On the way back, Gu Mingming got more nervous the closer they got to the basketball arena. She was so nervous that she did not dare to look at Bailan's eyes. She did not know if it was a psychological effect, but Gu Mingming's entire body tensed up. She laughed self-deprecatingly in her heart. Bailan was being proposed to. Why was she so nervous? Finally, the car stopped at the entrance of the basketball arena. The lights in the arena were switched off and it was pitch black. Bailan asked, what are we doing here? Gu Mingming was so nervous that she kept stuttering. She looked at Snake helplessly and said, yes, what are we doing here? Snake reached out a hand and stroked Gu Mingming's little head with a gentle smile. Just now, Zhang Jincheng called me and said that he had left the anti-inflammatory medicine in the changing room when he came to settle the paperwork to leave the team. He asked Bailan to help him get it and he will go to Bailan's place to get it tomorrow. Bailan replied with an "oh" with a look of disdain. She then got off the car and said to Gu Mingming, then you two wait here for me. We have too many things, you have to send me back to the dormitory. Gu Mingming gave an okay sign and watched as Bailan entered the basketball arena. After Bailan entered the basketball arena, Gu Mingming stretched her neck to look inside. Her two little hands clutched Snake's arm tightly. After waiting for a long time, there was no reaction from inside. Gu Mingming became a little anxious. Why is there no movement? Snake scanned the arena and said, that's right, why is there no movement? There couldn't have been any mistakes, right? Gu Mingming's face was full of worry. No, this is an important day for Bailan. Let's go in and take a look. We cannot let this matter go wrong. All right. Snakel smiled indulgently and allowed Gu Mingming to pull him down the car and walk towards the basketball court. Gu Mingming was so focused on Bailan that she did not notice that the moment they alighted, Snake held onto her tightly. It looked like he was being pulled by her, but behind her, he was looking at her with such a gentle and loving gaze. The lights in the basketball court were not switched on, but it was pitch black inside. Gu Mingming should have been able to see clearly with her night vision, but the moment she stepped into the basketball court, her eyes were blindfolded by Snakel. What are you doing? Gu Mingming did not struggle and just asked curiously. Snake nudged Gu Mingming inside and said, be good, wait a while. Gu Mingming felt that it was strange but her heart was thumping non-stop. Vaguely, Gu Mingming seemed to understand something. Snake. Gu Mingming sounded like she was about to cry as she called out Snake's name. Snake slowly released Gu Mingming's eyes. At the same time, with a click of the switch, the entire basketball court was brightly lit as if it was daytime. The words, Gu Mingming, I love you, were written on the balloon castle. Chapter 1659. Gu Mingming was so touched that she wanted to cry and in fact, she was already crying. What are you doing? Gu Mingming was laughing and crying at the same time, she did not know what to say. After Snake returned, they became partners not long after. His mark was already on her heart. Why was he still proposing now? She was already married to him, how could she still say no now? Snake just knelt there without moving, looking up and smiling without a hint of impatience. He just replied gently, how can I allow you to be envious of other women because of other men? I cannot allow you to feel aggrieved or regretful, not even the slightest bit. But didn't you say you would only propose once? Gu Mingming was so touched that her tears started to fall, but she forgot to let Snake stand up. Snake just knelt there still smiling. His eyes were filled with deep emotions. In front of you, I never have any principles or bottom line. For you, I can do anything. What's the big deal about overthrowing myself? Gu Mingming wanted to say something but Bailan could not stand it anymore. She pushed her lightly from behind and said, are you just going to let him kneel like this? Gu Mingming then reacted. Hurry and get up. You haven't agreed to my proposal, how can I get up? Snake was still smiling. His gaze towards Gu Mingming was as gentle as water and as deep as the ocean. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Everyone present started to jeer. Because in their eyes, Snake and Gu Mingming were just a couple who had confirmed their relationship for a few months. Gu Mingming nodded her head forcefully, then smiled and pulled Snake up. Snake took the opportunity to pull Gu Mingming into his arms. He kissed her forehead and said, "In 3 lifetimes, you are the only one I have knelt to. Gu Mingming, you have the right to be arrogant." Gu Mingming buried her face in Snake's arms. She knew that what he said about 3 lifetimes was not just an adjective. Following this hug, the relatives and friends who came to witness this happy moment all pulled the ribbons. Colorful ribbons and colorful pieces of paper fell from the sky. Blessings filled the surroundings. Partners. She had 3. But this was the first time she experienced a real proposal. Gu Mingming never knew that even though she had given birth to a few children, her maiden heart was still budding. And Snake was the one who revived her maiden heart. Gu Mingming looked up at Snake's eyes and said gently, "Ah Kel, thank you." Snake kissed Gu Mingming's eyes and said, "What are you thanking me for? This is what I should give you. We'll be on holiday next week. Let's go back to F country to get our marriage certificate and have our honeymoon." Gu Mingming was taken aback. "What? You just agreed to my proposal and now you're going back on your word?" "No." Gu Mingming was in a difficult position. She glanced at Elvis, Leah and Gregory from the corner of her eyes. Snake bit Gu Mingming's ear lightly and said, "Silly girl, do you really not know how much your males love you?" Gu Mingming looked at the 3 of them standing at the side in confusion. She then looked back at Snake's face. Snake kissed her on the lips and said, "Your men will never bear for you to suffer in any way." What he meant was that Elvis and the other 2 had agreed to Snake's actions today. Chapter 1660. You will experience such a scene 2 or 3 more times. But today you are mine. Snake used a voice that only the 2 of them could hear to whisper into Gu Mingming's ear, before kissing her deeply on the lips. After a round of hubbub, Gu Mingming pushed Snake with a blushing face, before turning to look at Bailan. Narrowing her eyes, she said, "Great, you are actually in cahoots with them?" Bailan raised her hands in surrender, saying, "I am a traitor, I am guilty." So what Zhang Jinqing proposing, was all a ruse? Today I am not the one pestering you, you are the one pestering me? Gu Mingming was really speechless to think that she was so good at acting. How could she not see that she had been tricked by Bailan? Bailan laughed heartily, stretching out her left hand and shaking her fingers. "Zhang Jinqing proposed to me last week in the hospital. Today, in order to lie to you, I didn't even dare to wear an engagement ring." "Bailan, your engagement is such a big event, how could you not call me?" Gu Mingming pounced on Bailan relentlessly, not hitting her but just tickling her. Bailan was most ticklish, so she could only beg for mercy, saying, "I was wrong, I was really wrong. Girl, forgive me, ha. I am doing this for my future husband's future." "What future?" Gu Mingming's hands stopped moving, looking at Bailan in confusion. Bailan held onto Zhang Jinqing's arm, leaning against his shoulder like a little bird, saying, "Zhang Jinqing took over as the CEO of the MO Group 3 days ago, and now your fiancé Snake is my fiancé's boss. Sorry, for the sake of our family's future happiness, I can only shamelessly betray my friend for my own glory." "You still dare to act so righteously," Gu Mingming said, but she was smiling. "Of course I'm righteous." Bailan laughed. "Just based on our relationship, I can act righteously in front of you for the rest of my life. Anyway, you can't bear to not acknowledge me. You win." Gu Mingming swung her arm in the end, before leaning back into Snake's arms. That night, the basketball stadium was very lively. Her close friends, men and women, were all drunk together. Later they said that they were so drunk that they saw a fox and a wolf jumping up and down in the basketball court, making a fool of themselves. A gigantic bird that he had never seen before was flying around the basketball court. There seemed to be a drunk girl on its back, singing at the top of her lungs. And the amazing thing was that even though they were out of tune, they could still sing together. After waking up, everyone showed great interest in this dream. The probability of everyone having the same dream was really not high, so everyone tried to go back and check the surveillance to see what exactly happened that night that caused them to have the same hallucination. It was a pity that the surveillance footage was suddenly cut off after Gu Mingming agreed to Snake's proposal. It was said that the fuse of the camera was blown. Meanwhile, in the villa on the other side, Gu Mingming was standing in front of the television, pointing at a fox and a wolf in a drunken stupor, asking, "In the past, you two were not convinced when I said that your alcohol tolerance was bad. What about this time? Isn't this irrefutable evidence? Would he still drink in the future?" Would he still drink? Elvis and Leah shook their heads obediently, indicating that they would never touch alcohol again. Then they looked at Snake at the same time. They clearly remembered that Snake also drank quite a lot, so why was he fine? Snake's lips curled up, looking at Elvis and Leah, saying, "You two are still very weak." Aside from the topic, the first part of the story ended here. This part was mainly led by Snake, and there were also other spies planted in the middle. If the reaction of the story is good and everyone likes it, I will consider the content of other people proposing to Gu Meng Meng. Chapter 1661. Although the kidnapping incident was over and those hooligans who insisted that they saw demons were locked up in the mental hospital, there were always coincidences. For example, the scene that day was actually witnessed by a few homeless beggars. But their words did not carry much weight, and even if they said it, no one would believe them. But the hooligans' testimonies, the beggars' rumors, and the scene that the students thought they saw when they were drunk on the day of the engagement, combined together, it gradually formed an exaggerated version of the story that even Gu Meng Meng herself found ridiculous. In order not to expose any more flaws, they could only complete the school transfer procedures and follow Snake back to F Country. F Country was Snake's home ground, and he had a strong family background as his backing. As for academics, naturally no one dared to seriously calculate Gu Meng Meng's academic points. Therefore, this ordinary student from a third-rate university in S City had transformed into a top student from a famous brand university in F Country. Gu Meng Meng sat on the small boat drifting with the current and held her chin. Looking at the males surrounding her, she sighed softly. Although in this era Snake was Gu Meng Meng's legitimate fiancé, the beast world had its own rules. No matter how strong the other partners were, the position of the first partner could not be violated. So, outside of Snake's home, Gu Meng Meng would always sit in Elvis's arms. What's wrong? Elvis's gaze was always concerned about the little person in his arms. No matter how different this world was from the beast world, in his eyes, it was just the same mountains and rivers. Only the one in his arms was a thousand-faced beauty that he could not get enough of. Gu Meng Meng looked up at Elvis and did not say a word before lowering her head again. If you don't like this place, can we go to other countries to play? Anyway, the problem of their identities has already been resolved, we can go anywhere. The current Snake was no longer the cold Snake King with low EQ. In front of Gu Meng Meng, both his EQ and EQ were always online. Gu Meng Meng shook her head and still did not say a word. Leah laughed softly and transformed his large tail to sit beside Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng instinctively hugged his tail, but her eyes widened. She instinctively lowered her voice and said, "Are you crazy? We are outside. What if someone sees us? Take it back, take it back." Leah placed his hands on Gu Meng Meng's shoulders and squinted his long and narrow eyes. His faint smile had a unique charm to it as he whispered into Gu Meng Meng's ear, "How can I let you go when you're hugging me so tightly? Meng Meng who says one thing and means another is so cute." Gu Meng Meng looked down at her own hands. Sigh, what a good-for-nothing. This furry fetish was her Achilles heel and she could not change it. Just as he was about to let go, Leah added, "Don't worry, even if someone sees it, they would only think that you're wearing a foxtail as an accessory. I've seen it on the road. Many people hang a fox's tail on their bags. It's just that the ones they hang aren't as good as yours." As Leah spoke, he even used the tip of his tail to tickle Gu Meng Meng's skin. It was so ticklish that Gu Meng Meng giggled before he stopped. Gregory sat quietly at the side. His eyes were filled with deep affection, but he didn't say a word. Unless Gu Meng Meng took the initiative to call him, he had no right to speak in this family. Aside from the topic, "My babies, sorry for the long wait. The editor informed us that we can continue updating the chapter at the last minute. Previously, everyone had been saying that Susu was biased towards Snake and only updated his marriage proposals, not the other three. So now that Susu had the chance, she came to present the marriage proposals one by one. Chapter 1662. Only when Gu Meng Meng smiled did the atmosphere on the boat lighten up. After all, every time she sighed, the four males would feel their hearts wrench. Leah was naturally a great hero because no matter if it was in the beast world or the present world, he was always the one who knew how to make Gu Meng Meng happy. The current Snake also knew how to tease Gu Meng Meng, but he did not have a tail like Leah. TSK, he really wanted to kill him. Previously in the Snake King Valley, this fellow used his tail to make fun of him. Now it was like this again. But what else could he do? That tail was what Taming liked. Leah did not care about Snake's inner thoughts. He struck while the iron was hot and asked, "Meng Meng, tell me, why are you sighing? Did someone make you unhappy or did you think of something unpleasant?" If you say it, Daddy Leah will settle it for you. Gu Mingming poked Li's forehead, causing his head to tilt backwards. Then she flung Li's tail away and shrunk into Elvis's arms, hugging him tightly and saying, I want to return to the beast world. Once she said those words, the males looked at each other for a while. If it was something else, they could do it for her. But Gu Mingming was the previous beast deity, the messenger of the beast deity. Her identity could never appear in the beast world again. It was not that these beast kings were unwilling to hide their identities with her, but the doors of time and space that belonged to her had already closed and disappeared, never to reappear again. Gu Mingming buried her face in Elvis's chest, ignoring the males who were racking their brains to think of a solution. She just continued, I like the rules in the beast world. There are no sluts who stare at other males day in and day out. The moment he said that, the other three turned to look at Elvis in unison. Elvis's face darkened. I don't know her, nor did I speak to her. She can't be slut on me. Gu Mingming lowered her head, harumphed and did not reply, but her arms around Elvis's waist tightened. Elvis was also helpless. Before boarding the boat, she suddenly said she wanted to eat ice cream, so Elvis crossed the small square in front of the pier to buy it for her. Unexpectedly, when he came back, a woman in a revealing and strange outfit suddenly stuffed a note into his pocket. He held the ice cream with both hands and couldn't push her away. The woman wanted more and wanted to kiss him. Elvis could not accept any females other than Gu Mingming getting close to him. Especially since he was a wolf beast and was especially sensitive to smells, the smell on that female almost made him choke to death. Therefore, without thinking, he raised his leg and kicked the woman, sending her flying. No matter what others were saying, Elvis returned to Gu Mingming's side without turning back. In the end, Gu Mingming did not even want to eat the ice cream. She pounced into his arms and tore out the note from his pocket. She threw it into the bin with the ice cream and hung it on his body. He was the one who hugged her every day, so he didn't think too much about it. Seeing that she was in a bad mood, he didn't dare to speak casually, afraid that he would say something wrong and make her even more unhappy. Now that she opened her mouth, he finally understood that his Xiaomeng was jealous. Actually, he was quite happy. Because if she was jealous, it meant that she cared about him. Chapter 1663. But I just don't like it. Gu Mingming said in a low, muffled voice, when we were in Z country, it was because the few of you were attracting attention with your exotic looks. Every day there would be lascivious bees and butterflies trying to get close to you. That was why I decided to come to F country. I originally thought that your looks would not differ much from the locals here and those women would not stick to you anymore. Who knew that you all had a bitch-attracting buff, causing people to worry no matter where you go. Leah maintained his noble character of not letting others die and pointed at Elvis and said, Mingming, I'm innocent. The females in my medical team have long been kicked out by me. Even the corpses I use for dissection are male. I know my Mingming hates other females touching me the most, so I love myself very much and will not give those bitches a chance to get close to me. As Leah said that, he even transformed his beast ears and rubbed them against Gu Mingming's hand, looking like he was begging for praise and love. Gu Mingming nodded her head in satisfaction before reaching out to rub Li's beast ears. She looked at Leah with a "you're still the most obedient" expression, causing Li's heart to flutter before a little fox seductive fragrance was released. Snakel frowned and grabbed Leah by the back of his neck, throwing him to the other side of the boat. He said coldly, don't do it in public, it'll be troublesome to deal with the aftermath. You're just jealous that Mingming dotes on me. Right? Snakel admitted openly. In this family, compared to Elvis, the first partner, he was even more jealous of Leah, who could always control Taming's emotions. This shameless fellow really carried out the principle of being undefeatable when one was the most despicable. After throwing Leah away, Elvis sat beside Gu Mingming and held her little hand, saying, everything I have belongs to you. I won't even allow the air around me to be contaminated by other females. So don't worry, I don't have that bitch-attracting buff. Gu Mingming nodded her head in agreement. After all, in the years before she grew up, Snakel was really so extreme that even his own mother did not allow him to speak to him. In order to give her a complete him, he was misunderstood as a mute for so many years. He really didn't have a bitch-sucking buff. Gu Mingming retracted her little hand and took the initiative to wrap it around Snake's neck. She patted his back lightly and sniffled as she responded with Snake then smiled, then pointed at Gregory and said, as for him, he could guard Moda Mountain for 1,000 years without any status, just to exchange for your peace of mind. Although I'm by your side now, I'm just in the awkward position of a guardian beast. The 4 words, I can't get what I want, were like shackles tied around his neck. You are his dream and he will not rest until he dies. His eyes have never moved away from you. He exudes a strong sense of, this bird has an owner, from head to toe. No matter what kind of B*TC she is, she wouldn't have laid her eyes on a piece of wood like him who has no blind spots and is impervious to everything. Gu Mingming looked up in the direction of Snake's words and met Gregory's deep and passionate eyes. He did not have time to dodge and just met Gu Mingming's gaze. Chapter 1664. Gu Mingming smiled at Gregory. Her feelings towards him were rather complicated. If it was love, it did not seem to be considered. But the guilt was real. Back then he had broken his wings and blinded his eyes, sacrificing his life to protect Snake for 1,000 years. After Snake's return, his identity became an embarrassment. If she did not allow him to stay by her side, then he would have nowhere to go. After all, to the beast world he was someone who had died 1,000 years ago. So Gu Mingming gave him the identity of a guardian beast and let him stay. After so many years of interaction, Gu Mingming had actually thought of giving him a chance to become a full member. Because no matter if he was a beast pet or a guardian beast, Gregory was already her male. But Gregory was too well behaved and guarded his identity as a guardian beast to the death. If Gu Mingming did not give any orders, he would not say a word as though he did not exist. As for mating, Gu Mingming could not possibly give an order. Gregory, come over and lie down for me, I want to clap for love with you. Right? No matter how experienced she was, Gu Mingming was still a woman. Such words were too shameful and she really could not say it. So one could not say it while the other was unwilling to take the initiative. The two of them dragged it on and on. The longer it dragged, the harder it was for them to say it, and slowly it became like this. Gu Mingming shifted her gaze away and looked back at Elvis. Elvis pursed his lips and could not say a word for a while. He was not as eloquent as Leah, nor did he understand the rules of this world like Snake, who had lived here for more than 10 years. He did not know how to communicate with Xiaomeng. He could not even understand what the so-called bitch-sucking buff was. But he only knew one thing. His Xiaomeng was suspecting him of being unfaithful. This was a very serious accusation, but he did not know how to defend himself. That damned female just now had really stuck close to him. Even though he had sent her flying with a kick, she was still trying to stick to him. Could it be that the keep away from strangers aura from his entire body was only effective on wild beasts? The females in this world did not have any sense of danger? Frowning, Elvis tightened his arms around Gu Mingming's waist. His throat felt tight and his heart was flustered, but he did not know what to say. Staring at Gu Mingming for a while, he could only force out a sentence, Xiaomeng. Gu Mingming also knew that Elvis was a man of action and it was almost impossible for him to say sweet nothings. But even though she was unhappy, she would not really suspect Elvis of cheating. After all, she knew better than anyone how much her partners loved her. Not wanting to make things difficult for Elvis, she looked up at him and said, I don't like other females getting close to you. All right. Elvis nodded his head seriously and replied, I will eat whoever dares to come near me. Gu Mingming was amused by Elvis's serious look. She leaned on Elvis's chest with a smile and said, That's not necessary, but the next time another woman approaches you, tell her, I have a wife, stay away from me. That will do. All right. Elvis always accepted all of Gu Mingming's requests without any objections. Chapter 1665. This trip to this small town was not just for sightseeing. Elvis had his eyes on the reward offered by the behind-the-scenes boss and decided to attend his underground fight. So Gu Mingming brought along her entire family to accompany Elvis to meet the behind-the-scenes boss. She had thought that the meeting would be held at some office building or office, but she did not expect the other party to suggest a small dock in a remote town. When she reached the designated location, Gu Mingming was momentarily dazed. Not because of anything else, but because she recognized the so-called behind-the-scenes boss with one look. Frowning, Gu Mingming sat on her little boat and did not move. And her males followed her gaze the moment she frowned. When they saw the person sitting upright, their murderous aura overflowed and could not be concealed. Cole. Leah was the first to murmur softly. He and Elvis had died in Cole's hands before. Although it had been 1,000 years, that grudge had long dissipated in the long river of time, and those past conflicts and grudges had long been put down. But, no matter when, the person who made Gu Mingming frown deserved to die. This was the consensus that the 4 males of the Cheng family could reach without any discussion. Gu Mingming sensed that the atmosphere was not right, and understood that her momentary shock had given her men the wrong hint, so she hurriedly adjusted her expression and said, "Don't be like this, I am not angry." After becoming a beast deity, Gu Mingming's state of mind had become much more stable. Many things that she could not understand and could not see through in the past gradually became clear. As the saying goes, those closely involved cannot see clearly. Just like what Qixin had said before, Cole was good at scheming and often set up traps to drag her into it. But if one were to think about it carefully, she was the one who ultimately benefited from every situation. It was just that she did not like him, so everything he did was despicable, dirty and unforgivable in her eyes. And in the end, in order to protect her and fulfill her wish to obtain the spirit of the rocky cliffs, he did not hesitate to force her to kill him with her own hands, causing him to sink into the deepest despair and the most painful state. As time passed, the hatred in her heart had long faded to the point that it could no longer be found. If they had not met again today, Gu Mingming thought that what Cole was most worried about would have happened. After all, that person had only begged, "I would rather you hate me than forget me." But now she had forgotten about him. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming led the way to the dock and sat in front of Cole. Cole tilted his head and looked at Gu Mingming. After staying silent for a long time, he spoke in fluent Chinese, "I feel that I should know you, right?" The corners of Gu Mingming's lips twitched as she smiled. After not seeing him for so many years, Gu Mingming had once thought that Cole was completely dead. She did not expect that his obsession with her would allow him to pass through the cracks in the environment and arrive in her world. Unfortunately, they were not fated to be together. So even though they were in the same world, he still couldn't meet her, and he couldn't even remember her. Perhaps. Gu Mingming had never imagined that she could face the man she hated so much. "You've been searching for my man all over the world, we really need to get to know each other." Chapter 1666. Looks like you really like wooden combs. Cole smiled, then took out a silver briefcase and opened it in front of everyone. Turning around to face Gu Mingming and the rest, he said, "This is the wooden comb I mentioned in the video. As long as you are willing to fight, you can take it away now." "Aren't you afraid that we will go back on our words and run away after taking the item?" Gu Mingming asked with a chuckle. Cole laughed hoarsely, and when he looked up at Gu Mingming, there was an indescribable gentleness in his gaze, with a hint of pampering that even he himself felt was unexplainable. He said, "He won't." Gu Mingming was still smiling as she looked at Cole, as if waiting for him to explain. Cole was a little agitated, but he did not understand why he was agitated. He just felt that it was a dream come true to be able to calmly talk to the young lady in front of him about unrelated matters. As a result, he, who had never been fed up with other people's stupidity and was unwilling to explain to anyone, now seemed to have endless patience and was willing to explain every single detail to the young lady. He only hoped that she could sit in front of him with a smile, even for a second longer. "He wants the wooden comb, I want him to fight. Boxing was a piece of cake for him, and it was a piece of cake for me to find more, better, and more special combs. We can provide each other with what the other party needs the most. Isn't this the best cooperation agreement? Of course he can take the wooden comb and leave now, anyway I can't beat any of them. But it's obviously not a wise move to give up more and better opportunities in the future just for a wooden comb." As Cole spoke, he looked up and his gaze swept past Elvis's face, stopping on Lee's face. He smiled and asked, "What do you think?" Lee's face hung his usual gentle and polite smile. That was his usual expression when facing people other than Gu Mingming. He did not reply to Cole's question because he knew that as the first partner in the family, other than Elvis himself, only Gu Mingming had the right to give her opinions and opinions. The clan's rules couldn't be broken. Regardless of whether he was a beast king or some other identity, he couldn't overstep the clan's rules. Even someone like Snake, who never followed the rules, only made a fuss with Elvis about snatching his first partner on the surface. He had never done anything substantial. After all, unless she killed Elvis, she would never be able to snatch the title of first partner away from him. Regardless of how strong Elvis was now or whether they had the ability to kill him. Just the fact that they would not do anything that would upset Mingming meant that no one would really covet the position of Elvis's first partner. Since his position was stable, then for the harmony of the family, in order to make Mingming more comfortable, they naturally would not do anything to disrupt the order of the family. It was one thing for them to fool around when they had a good relationship. But when it came to serious matters, they followed the rules of the beast world. The first partner could not be disobeyed or disobeyed. Leah ignored Cole, but Cole did not feel awkward. He just turned his gaze back to Gu Mingming's face. There was no reason. He just knew that although the four men looked like they were all important figures, The one who could really make the decisions in this situation was this weak and adorable little woman in front of him. Chapter 1667. Gu Mingming did not converse too much with Cole. Since the matters of the past had gone with the wind, forgetting each other in the pugilistic world was the best ending for both of them. She did not want Cole to remember those past events in the beast world. His infatuation was a burden to her. Elvis took the wooden comb and left with Gu Mingming after asking about the date and location of the underground fight. On the way back to the hotel, Elvis kept hugging Gu Mingming. He remained silent for a long time before saying, "I didn't know he was the boss behind the scenes." "It doesn't matter." Gu Mingming smiled at Elvis and said, "To me he is not special. He is the same as anyone else, so you don't have to blame yourself." Yes, Elvis felt very uncomfortable. He had never thought that he would become the opportunity for Gu Mingming to meet Cole again. He tightened his grip on Gu Mingming and said, "Then do you still want this wooden comb?" "Of course." Gu Mingming took the wooden comb from Elvis and smiled. "Didn't you say that whoever gets this wooden comb will be blessed with happiness? You went through so much trouble to get it for me, how can I not want it?" Elvis smiled and kissed Gu Mingming's face, saying, "Then I will help you comb your hair." "All right." Gu Mingming sat up straight and let Elvis start combing her hair. Strangely enough, Leah was especially talented in cooking, while Elvis's dark cuisine had not improved even after 1,000 years of rebirth. But Elvis's obsession with Gu Mingming's hair allowed him, a man who could easily break someone's arm, to learn several exquisite hairstyles in just over a week. He was equipped with a mobile phone, but other than taking pictures of Gu Mingming, he could only use it to read various hairstyles from the app. Strangely, he had a photographic memory when it came to hairstyles. As long as he looked at it once, he would be able to do it on Gu Mingming's head. Moreover, he would make slight adjustments according to Gu Mingming's face shape and clothing. He was practically the Gu family's teacher Tony. What Gu Mingming did not know was that the reason why Elvis was so obsessed with her hair was because he had coincidentally seen an ancient popular science post about married couples. He said that although it was common for men in ancient times to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, only the first wife could be called a wife. He also said that only the husband could untie his wife's hair, and then embrace each other, loving each other like glue. If his first wife died early, he only needed to break the wooden comb she used into 2 pieces and place one half of it in her coffin and the other half on his body. In this way, no matter where he went, he would be able to find her and never be separated from her again. Gu Mingming had 4 partners. Although Gregory was not official, based on everything he had done for Gu Mingming, Elvis still acknowledged him as a family member. Therefore he had to gather 4 wooden combs. Only then would he be able to have all the people by her side accompany her forever. Although he also wanted to monopolize it. But he couldn't bear for her to suffer, couldn't bear for her to be incomplete, couldn't bear for her to have even a trace of regret. But he had never told anyone about these. He only monopolized Gu Mingming's hair as the first partner and did not allow anyone else to touch it. He was the first wife. Although it was just a title, he was not willing to give it to anyone else. The underground boxing match that Cole had arranged was to be held a week later. As the incident of Elvis killing the boss of the Black Fist in seconds was already known to everyone underground, the moment the news of Elvis participating in the match spread, the entire underground boxing world was in an uproar. It was hard to get a seat in the audience. A match that did not require any marketing to be so popular naturally did not need to be dragged on for too long. Aside. Chapter 1668. Usually, in underground fights, the contestants would not use their real names. They would choose a more impressive nickname, similar to a celebrity's stage name. And Elvis's nickname was given by Cole. Whether it was a coincidence or not, he chose the 2 words Wolf King. When Gu Mingming saw this nickname, she could not help but laugh. He really knows how to name things. If you don't like it, I'll ask him to change it. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mingming's slender waist and stood straight behind her, acting as a human cushion so that she could lean into his arms anytime. It would save some energy and make it more comfortable. He had heard the nickname Wolf King for thousands of years and was already numb to it. He did not care about Gu Mingming's other identities other than being the first partner. So if she did not like it, he naturally did not mind changing it to something else. Gu Mingming shook her head. Wolf King is very good. He looks majestic and domineering. Then what about Fox King? Leo was naturally charming. Every frown and smile of his exuded a seductive charm, making one's teeth itch with hatred. One must bite him to vent their anger. Gu Mingming snorted at him. You're everywhere. Weren't you the one who insisted on me being the spare tire? Leah frowned in aggrievement. If anything happens to him later, aren't you counting on me to treat him? We haven't even recited our scriptures and you're already hitting a monk? Is there a flirtatious monk like you? Gu Mingming pinched Li's waist. She gritted her teeth and whispered into his ear. Are you afraid that others don't know you're a fox? How dare you act coquettishly in public? If I don't do this, how can I attract your attention? After all, I climbed up from being a beast pet. I naturally don't forget to flirt so that I won't lose your favor. Don't you think so? My Queen Mingming? Get lost. Gu Mingming rolled her eyes at Leah and ignored him. She then turned to look at Elvis. He's just a normal person. Go easy on him. Everyone is just trying to make a living. Don't easily cripple him and ruin his livelihood. All right. Elvis smiled gently, accepting all of Gu Mingming's requests. But, Gu Mingming changed the topic and said with a serious expression, you are also not allowed to get hurt. If I see the other party injuring you, don't expect me to agree to let you join the underground boxing anymore. Cole had already shown the other wooden comb to Elvis. If he won this round and was willing to continue the next round, he would give him the goddess comb that he had obtained from the ancient tomb in Z country. It was said that it was the bone comb used by Nuwa. Thus, it was almost certain that Elvis would have his next fight a month after this one. Elvis wanted that goddess's comb because it was said to have the ability to attract good fortune and avoid calamity. It was stained with Nuwa's fairy aura and even demons and ghosts had to avoid it. Although he had never seen a demon before, and the four of them should be the legendary demons and they were at the top level, he was willing to fight for it for Gu Mingming regardless if it was real or fake. Don't worry. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's forehead. I won't let myself get hurt. With that, Elvis carried Gu Mingming to the spectator stand on the second floor. That was the VIP viewing room that Cole had specially prepared for Gu Mingming. It had soundproof single-sided bulletproof glass. Even if Gu Mingming could see the arena clearly from the second floor, the people outside would not be able to see her. Out of topic. Chapter 1669. The audience downstairs had already entered the arena one after another. Other than Gu Mingming and her family sitting in the VIP room on the second floor, Cole also came uninvited. After all, this was his home ground and Gu Mingming did not have the right to chase him away, so she did not say much and allowed Cole to sit beside her. The sofas here were all independent seats, so even though Cole was sitting beside her, there was actually a small coffee table between them, so they were not really sitting next to each other. And Gu Mingming's thoughts were all on the arena below, so she did not have any extra thoughts to share with Cole. The surrounding lights dimmed with a click, and the audience became quiet. The spotlights suddenly lit up, then Elvis walked out from the resting area for the fighters. The audience was in an uproar for 2 seconds, then suddenly became quiet again as if they were looking at the strange clothes that Elvis was wearing, printed with the words, I have a wife, you are away from me. She came to watch a boxing match but was still stuffed with dog food. She really wanted to curse. The staff used the walkie-talkie to communicate with Cole, saying that Elvis insisted on not removing the clothes, to which Cole only replied with, let him be, and did not say anything else. Elvis stood in the middle of the arena, looking straight at the second floor. Even though there was only one side of the glass, he knew that his Xiaoming was looking at him from there. Just thinking about it made his mood improve. The resting room door on the other side opened, and a man wearing a hooded cape walked out. Gu Mingming instinctively took a look, and just one look was enough to make her shocked. Another acquaintance. Leah also laughed softly, his large tail appearing in front of Cole without any scruples, circling around Gu Mingming's waist. He sat on the armrest of Gu Mingming's little sofa, one hand on the back of the sofa behind Gu Mingming, while the other held Gu Mingming's little hand and played with it. He smiled, it's actually him, ha, this time, Elvis will not only tear off one of his arms, he might not even have the life to leave the arena. Snake had Gu Mingming shared memories, so he also recognized this person who was on the arena. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his eyes burned with a sinister emerald green color. His voice was cold and he said, why don't we change the person? Let me see what kind of fun underground boxing is like. You are the Prince of F country, how can you appear in an underground fighting ring? Don't create more trouble. Gu Mingming held her forehead and said, how can there be such a coincidence in this world? Cole looked at Gu Mingming in confusion. He could not understand their conversation, but he understood that they seemed to know the person who challenged Elvis. So Cole pointed to the side of the arena and said, "His woman owes me a lot of money. I was going to sell her to a sex slave agency to repay the debt." But this man stood out and said that he was willing to challenge Elvis. If he won, he would take his reward as repayment of the debt. If he lost, he would take his compensation as repayment of the debt. Gu Mingming sighed and said, "If you win, you have to pay with your money, and if you lose, you have to pay with your life." He really hasn't changed at all. For a woman like that, he can always risk his life. "You know her?" Cole asked softly. Gu Mingming did not answer but asked back, "That woman, how much money does she owe you?" "Not much, just 4 million USD. Cole answered honestly. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "I will return this 4 million for her, but I want to let that man live." Aside from the topic, that you're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.